Yes, sir. Yes, I'm ready for you.
Very good. So this meeting is being recorded, not only as a Zoom meeting, but it is being recorded by Ms. Robb, who is the court reporter hired by the city for this purpose. Again, my name is Ralph Pincus. I am the acting chairman of the Board of License and Inspection Review. I would ask that those people who are present this afternoon on the board and in our administrative capacities identify themselves, administrative and legal capacities.
Steve Pettit, board member.
Roger S. Tennant, Senior Board Member.
Beverly Penn, board member.
Ken Washington, board member.
Brian McSherry, Board Counsel.
Richard Wade, board administrator.
Very good. And as I said, we do have a court reporter also present taking, transcribing the testimony that's being provided. Do we have any requests? And I believe we've received several for continuances or withdrawals at today's hearing. I guess we should ask for the city, as we do regularly, who is the spokesperson for the city on these hearings today and can indicate the status of all these matters? Is there someone?
Good afternoon, Chairman Pincus. This is Alexandra Athanasiadis on behalf of the city and in regards to the Philadelphia Water Department matters.
Mm-hmm.
And I can advise the board, case number 3, HA-2022-002645, appellant Evia Jimenez, property address 233 East Allegheny Avenue is moot complied. Case number
Very good. Thank you. So noted.
Case number 4 on today's list, HA-2022-002750. Appellant Lisa Lawn, property address 1838 East Airdrie Street. That is also moot complied.
Very good. Thank you.
And cases number 1, 2, 5, 6, and 13, the city is prepared to move forward on.
2, 5, 6, 13. Okay, and the other cases are not water cases. Very good. And we have a note that there's a witness on cases 1, 5, and 13 who has a time constraint, so we would try to hear those first, okay?
Thank you for the courtesy.
What about the other cases that the city has that are listed and the city has an attorney? Is someone here to speak on those cases? Ms. Athanasiadis, do you know who is going to be here on those other cases?
Board, this is Caroline Curley on behalf of the law department. I actually believe each of us are ready to proceed. Well, any discussion, administrative matters, each of us will bring up. I do know the last group of cases that are slated for AIU appeals. I do know that there is a continuance request that has been put forth by, I believe, Petitioners Council. And the assigned attorney will address that when the board wants to address it.
Well,
and I'm the assigned attorney for those.
Mr. Cohen, good afternoon.
Good
I'm
afternoon.
not hearing that there's any other matters for which either there's been an administrative resolution or a continuance request other than the last 6 matters, which involve RLC Contractors, Inc. And there's been a continuance request. I think we ought to get that continuance request resolved as soon as we ought to get that resolved now.
Thank you.
If we're going to grant it, then we'll take this off the calendar, off the list. Is there anyone here? Mr. Cohen, you're here, correct?
Yes, I am here and I can present an offer of proof about why we should proceed today, why these are emergency matters. I do not see anyone here for RLC Contractors, but I am happy to present why this is an emergency.
Mr. Wade, do you have anyone any indications that there's anyone in the waiting room here connected with this case? We had a Mr. McInnes, I believe, listed as the attorney. And I believe there was another person who's listed as the principal in the company.
I see no one under the name McInnes. And the appellant's name listed, the RLC contractor. No one has answered to that call. If you want to call them again. And they were notified that their continuance wouldn't be granted until after at the board's discretion before today's hearing.
I guess what I'd like to do, I want to be respectful. I'm an attorney who's made a request and said that he has a conflict with other matters that are calendared. But this is an emergency matter, and at least as I read the pleadings that are involved, it involves.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I believe you were just muted. Mid-sentence, I believe.
I'm sorry. I don't know what you heard of what I was just saying. I read enough of the pleadings that were submitted by the city to know that there's life-threatening conditions that may be involved here, not only life-threatening, but also physical conditions by at least alleged by the conduct of the appellant in this matter. So I'm reluctant to defer or delay the hearing, but I'm also, as I was mentioning, as an attorney, sensitive to the fact that an attorney has said that there's a conflict. Is there any way for someone to reach out? I don't know whether
I can have board administration reach out if we want to start hearing the cases in the meantime.
I would like to do that. I would like someone to try to contact the attorney, Mr. McInnes, and ask him, because even if the request for a continuance was made without it being resolved, someone needed to be here to hear the disposition of that request.
I would also point out for the board's record, the city requested an emergency hearing on November 28th, and then it produced on December 5th its city exhibits, and December 6th, the day after, that was when Mr. McInnes requested the continuance, not before, not when the city was actually discussing why it needed the emergency hearing.
Well, I also noted that the appeal was filed in October. Have you had any contact with the attorney for the appellant at all in this matter?
No, I've been sending emails to the board and to Mr. McInnes. Mr. McInnes, when he said in his continuance request, neglected to CC me. I've had no other contact with Mr. McInnes other than his forwarded email.
And or have you had any contact with the appellant, the entity that's the appellant?
I wouldn't contact the appellant directly because they're represented, so it would only be with Mr. McInnes.
I get it. Very good. All right. So Mr. Wade said he will try to reach them. And in the meantime, I guess let us proceed to hear those cases on the list. Mr. Wade.
Case number 1.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, there's only one other procedural administrative matter that I would raise with the board, and it concerns appeal number 8.
Before you speak further, would you please identify yourself?
Pardon, sir. Michael Rullo on behalf of the city of Philadelphia. I know that the board usually handles matters that may require an attorney as an initial administrative matter. Number 8, which concerns appeal ending 003380, Kelvin Peralta, 218 South 52nd Street. The actual permit holder in that case is a corporate entity. So this appeal was filed by an individual, but it concerns a tobacco retailer permit, and that permit is held by a corporate entity. So in the city's view, it requires an attorney. And again, I know the board usually likes to handle those cases initially to make a determination as to whether counsel is needed.
That's fine. You're correct. If in fact it's a corporate attorney, the regulations for the board do require, and I believe it's spelled out in the appeal form, that if you are either a corporation or an LLC, you must have an attorney represent you at the hearing. So with your having called that to our attention, is there anyone present here in connection with case number 8? It's appeal HA 2021-003380. The appellant is listed as Calvin Peralta, a tobacco retailer license at 218 South 52nd Street.
Yes, we're here.
Very good. Do you have, is Mr. Rulo has said that the actual license holder is it an LLC or a corporation, Mr. Rulo?
He's a sole proprietor.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, he's not answering. There's someone else answering.
Well, that's true. Mr. Peralta, you're listed as the appellant. We're hearing from a lady. Are you able to speak, sir?
Hello?
Is there a Mr. Peralta? Is there a Kelvin Peralta? Hello, can you hear us?
Hello.
Yes, is there a Kelvin Peralta? Are you Mr. Peralta, the gentleman I see on the screen?
No entiendo lo que dice. Yes.
Do you speak English?
No, Vito.
Well, then we've got another problem because you would need to have an interpreter here if you're not going to be able to speak English. But let us first, again, let me go back to Mr. Rulo. Who does the license show as the license holder?
Yes, so you look at the permit documents, which I've submitted as Exhibit A, it says the tobacco retailer name is a Perkamali Food Market. And I also, as the city Exhibit B, included the registration information for that business with the Pennsylvania Department of State.
Well, unfortunately, Mr. Rulo, for me, I've got for every case, I have at least one set of exhibit documents to open up, and they're not distinguished on my computer. So I'm not sure which one is yours. So perhaps you could open your screen for a moment so the board could see what exhibit documents you have.
Yes, sir. Just 1 second.
Mr. Chair, are we reading this into the record?
Actually, we're trying to determine whether or not we should hear this matter under the rules of the board. And so I've asked Mr. Rulo just to show us, and Mr. McSherry, you can correct me. I just want to know what the city lists as says tobacco retailer for Camelli Food Market. That doesn't indicate whether it's an LLC or a corporation.
Yeah, so the name of the permit holder or proposed permit holder was this Perkamali Food Market. And then if I move down to Exhibit B, this entity is registered with the Pennsylvania Department of State as a corporate entity, which you can see here on the right, excuse me.
It says fictitious name, says owner. I'm not sure I see something to indicate that it's other than an individual.
Well, I guess in the cities, we were unable to get access to the certificate. I don't have that here with me, but the fact that it's registered with the state as in terms of the database for corporate entities, we'd need to clarify that because it would appear that just based on the fact that it's registered as some sort of entity rather than individually in the name, it would seem to indicate that there is some sort of a corporate ownership here.
Well, I guess I'm not persuaded based on what you're showing right now that it isn't just the use of a fictitious name by an individual. But in the meantime, it would appear that the gentleman who, Mr. Peralta, does not speak English, and we'd have to have an interpreter with him at the hearing, and that has to be an individual engaged by the board who's an approved qualified interpreter. Again, there's a lady there. She seems to speak English. I don't know whether you've explained all of this to Mr. Peralta, but I'm going to recommend that we continue the case. And when it is relisted, you need to, we'll make a note that there needs to be interpreter, and an interpreter is the language Spanish.
Yes.
That we'd need a Spanish interpreter. And if the owner of the property, the owner who has the license is an LLC, a limited liability corporation, or a corporation under Pennsylvania law or some other state, there would need to be an attorney representing the appellant at the hearing.
Okay, I'm his accountant. He's a sole proprietor, is under a fictitious name. 2014.
You're his accountant? Is that
Yes.
what you said? Okay. Well, fine. An accountant isn't authorized to represent someone at the hearing. So again, we would need an interpreter to hear what he has to say. If he wants to have an attorney as a sole proprietor, that's fine. But normally an accountant would not be acceptable.
Okay.
So we'll continue the hearing on case number HA 2021-003-380, so we can schedule an interpreter to be present.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Rulo or someone else from the city? Ms. Curley?
That is the only administrative matter I have.
Very good.
Excuse me, Chairman. This is Siobhan Johnson. I think I fall under that where I need to have an attorney present for 808 North Broad Street.
Just a moment. But is that property owned? You're listed as number 10 on the list. Is your license issued to a corporation?
Yeah, under a LLC, yes.
It's an LLC?
Yes,
Who's
for
representing this?
Jador Cafe Lounge.
Say that again, the name of the entity?
Jador Cafe Lounge.
Two-door cafe
Jador.
lounge.
Jador, Jadore, Cafe Lounge.
Cafe lounge, okay. Who's representing the city? Is this your case, Mr. Rulo?
No, Nakia Clark on behalf of the city of Philadelphia.
Ms. Johnson has spoken and said that the actual license holder is Jador Cafe Lounge. Does that confirm? Is that anywhere on the records that you have for this matter?
So that is correct. I can share my screen if it's helpful for the board.
Well, if you agree, we don't need to have you, as long as you say that the records the city has show that it's an LLC that's the owner, that's fine. Then, Ms. Johnson, you're correct. You need to have an attorney represent you in these hearings.
Okay.
So we'll continue the matter. And when it gets listed again, you'll need to have someone representing you, okay?
Okay, thank you, Chairman.
Case number HA 2021-004-281 is continued. Anyone else that has something of this nature to raise?
Good afternoon, Chairman. Case number 11, which has appellant Jignesh Patel for 4th and Market Street, southwest corner. The permit holder is an incorporated entity.
Is anyone here in attendance for case number HA 2022-002-343? The appellant is Jignesh Patel, 4th and Market Street, southwest corner.
Yes, I'm here. I'm Jignesh Patel.
Jignesh, Mr. Patel, the city has identified the license holder as a corporation. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I believe you may have had some documents that were submitted by an attorney. Mr. Okay, very good. I'm sorry. So Mr. Patel, is it true that the license holder is a corporation?
Yes, it is.
Well,
true.
under the rules of the board, the corporation must be represented by an attorney at the hearing.
Okay, what if I cannot afford an attorney for this matter?
I think that's something you have to discuss with the board, or try to find someone who can represent you through either the lawyer referral service of the Philadelphia Bar Association. I don't know whether the Community Legal Services would represent a corporate entity. But unfortunately, we can't hear the matter without legal representation. Mr. McSherry, do you have any suggestions?
Not beyond the Philadelphia Bar Association's referral service, no.
Try the Bar Association lawyer referral service, and maybe, is there a city solicitor on this matter?
That is me.
Ms. Reinhardt, I'm sorry. I apologize. I don't know whether Ms. Reinhardt, if you have a conversation with her, she might be able to assist you with recommending someone. The only place I'm aware of is the lawyer's referral service and Community Legal Services and VIP program, but I believe those are for individuals. Okay, but we'll continue the case, case number 11, HA 2022-002-343.
If I can make a request also on the record, it sounded like there were exhibits submitted to the board. If I could have a copy of those as well, I would appreciate that just for the next hearing.
I may have mistaken this case, but if there's anything that was submitted, I'll ask Mr. Wade to forward it to you. I may have mistaken which case it is. I know one of them submitted a contract indicating that the ownership of the entity had been sold to another individual, but I may have misrecalled the case.
I appreciate
All right.
it. Thank you.
Any other questions, issues regarding an appellant and their status as a corporation?
Board, this is Caroline Curley on behalf of the Law Department. Just to clarify, that contract you referenced, that actually is affiliated, I believe, with case number 7. So Ms. Reinhardt can rest easy.
Okay.
And then additionally, as to matter number 12, that is with the appellant Zhu Yu Zhang, who is associated, the tobacco retailer permit was associated with Michael's Grocery. The city does not know the status of that entity, but I would just wanted to raise the issue based on the comments before the board appeared. I'm not entirely sure whether this appellant would benefit from an interpreter. So I did want to just raise that prior to beginning the list.
Well, I guess let's find out so we can save the trouble of someone waiting for half an hour or an hour or more. Case number HA 2021-003-384. Appellant, and I'm not going to pronounce this well, Zhu Yu Zhang.
Yeah, I'm here.
You're here, okay. Mr. Zhang?
Doesn't have a photo up yet.
I'm sorry, Mr. Washington, what did you say?
I say his picture is not up yet.
Well, I just heard someone say respond. Is there a Mr. Zhang? Is there someone here with respect to 1138 West Porter Street? No. Yes, it's 1138 West Porter Street. Is there someone present?
Yes.
I'll repeat that one more time. Case number HA 2021-003-384. Yu Zhang, 1138 West Porter Street. Is there anyone present?
I'm Chinese. No, little bit speak Chinese, not English.
I don't see you on my screen, but I see a name on the screen. Sir, do you have a an ability to make a video connection?
Video connection?
Do you speak English?
No, just a little bit, not too much.
Not too much. What is your preferred language?
For Methodist,
Chinese? What
Yes.
language do you use? Mandarin?
Methodist.
Ms. Curley, what do you suggest that we schedule?
Yeah, yes.
All right.
My son, you can talk to my son. He know the English.
Okay, Mr. Zhang, because of your limited English speaking ability, I don't know if you're understanding me, we are going to postpone or continue this hearing. And when it is rescheduled, we're going to ask that there be present an interpreter, a Mandarin interpreter, to help you present your case.
Okay, thank you.
Is that,
All
was
right.
that, did he state Mandarin?
I believe you said, is it Mandarin? Say that one more time, please.
Is it possible if I help him because I am his son?
Just for purposes of today, if you could clarify whether he needs a Mandarin or Cantonese interpreter, that would be.
Yeah, he's a Mandarin interpreter. Are you guys supplying the interpreter or does he?
We will, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Zhang, did you say Mandarin? Yes, he said Mandarin.
Mandarin, yes.
Okay, so case number 12, HA 2021-003-384 is continued. And Mr. Wade, the administrator, our administrator will note that we will need to have a Mandarin interpreter present for when this matter is relisted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more? We're almost done. We've almost continued most of the cases, so. Okay,
It's not right.
all right, are we ready to start, members of the board and city attorneys? Should we, Mr. Wade?
Yes.
Oh, have you been able to contact?
We have left a message with, board staff reached out to council. Vernon McInnes left a message. There was no answer. And there was no ability. They reached out to the RLC contractors and were unable to leave a message, but both parties were contacted, or at least
All
tried
right,
to.
well, let's wait until we get to the case on the list, okay, Mr. Cohen?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Case number, go ahead, Mr. Wade.
Case number 1, hearing appeal number HA 2022-002-594 Brendan Chuck, 1909 South 4th Street.
Good
Is
I'm here. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Mr. Chuck, and the city's represented by Ms. Athanasiadis.
That is
I'm
correct,
getting-
Chairman.
I'm close. Mr. Shuck, are you, I'm trying to, there you are, you're seated. Okay, may I ask you to raise your right hand and agree that you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give today will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very good. Ms. Athanasiadis?
Yes, good afternoon, Chairman Pincus. This case is before the board as Brendan Shuck, who is present, is appealing a notice of defect that was served on June 2nd, 2022 for the property located at 1909 South 4th Street. The deed lists Brendan C. Shuck and Caitlin Q. Cahill as property owners. On June 2nd, 2022, the Philadelphia Water Department went to the 1900 block of South 4th Street as a result of a residential call for a sunken mounded ditch. On June 2nd, dye was placed in a cave-in and dye was shown in the sewer through a defective lateral. A notice of defect was issued that day, and as of the most recent reinspection date of September 29th, 2022, no repairs had been made at 1909 South 4th Street. The city will be calling Mr. Calvin Alexander as its witness for this matter.
Very good.
Mr. Alexander, can you unmute yourself? There you go.
Yes.
Mr. Alexander, I'm looking, is that the screen that has Dwight Green on the bottom of it?
That's correct.
We'd prefer if Mr. Wade, can you correct that to say Mr. Alexander's name? You are, Calvin. Would you identify yourself and again, please?
Calvin Alexander.
All right. And would you, and you're speaking as a witness for the city, could I ask you to raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give today will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Ms. Anastasiadis, would you proceed?
Yes. Mr. Alexander, by whom are you employed?
Philadelphia Water Department,
And how long have you been an employee of the Philadelphia Water Department?
13 years.
And what is your current job title?
I'm a crew chief,
And how long have you been a crew chief?
7 years.
And what are your responsibilities as crew chief?
I oversee like problems that happens in the street as far as depressions, cave-ins. If someone calls in and say they have issues inside their home, we do inspections inside the home and things of that nature.
And specifically, when you're saying inspections related to water issues?
That's correct. If they say they got water in their basement, we come in and try to find the problem.
Okay. And prior to becoming a crew chief, what was your job title at the city?
Sewer maintenance inspector.
Okay. And is it fair to say you've issued defect notices as a sewer inspector, sewer maintenance inspector?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, Mr. Alexander. I'm just going to direct your attention 1 second. Okay.
You see this? You see this?
Okay.
Okay.
I've
Something
shared
else.
my screen. Can you see what I have on my screen, Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Okay. Now, this has been marked as City 2, and this is page 1 of City 2. Now, Mr.
Yes.
Alexander, do you see where my cursor is?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And this is a service request. Is that correct?
Yes.
And this is a record that's stored in the City Work system?
Yes, it is.
And is this a Philadelphia Water Department record that is normally stored and used in its normal course and scope of business?
Yes, it is.
And I'm going to direct your attention here, sir. There's some information here where it says let's start up here. It says initiated date, May 24th, 2022. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And there was a caller, a resident that called in.
Yes.
And it says here for the service request, the address provided was 1908 South 4th Street.
Yes.
Okay. And here in the existing comment section, it says street or sidewalk sunken and / mounded ditch. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And is this how the work order was created for you and your crew to go out on site?
That's correct. Yes.
Now, Mr. Alexander, I'm gonna also pull up. Okay, I'm sharing my screen again. Please let me know when you're able to see it. Okay, do you see my screen, Mr. Alexander?
Yes, I do.
And what is this I'm showing you?
It's a notice of a defect as far as plumbing.
Okay. And is this a document you reviewed along with the other document that was shown to you?
Yes.
Okay. And what is the date? What is the date of this notice?
I got you.
2 June
Yeah, what is it now?
2022.
Just a moment, please. There's background noise. I don't know whether it might be from Mr. Alexander's office. If that could that be eliminated so we can hear the testimony?
Mr. Chair, it was from Majority Wilkins' phone that was making.
I muted her.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and can you tell, we indicated the date of this notice was June 2nd, 2022, correct?
That's correct.
And what is the service address?
1909 South 4th Street.
And were you the crew chief inspector on this particular day for this particular notice?
I was the crew chief, not the inspector.
Oh, I apologize, crew chief, yes. And the inspector was a Mr. Thornton.
That's correct.
Okay. Now I'm going to direct you to the middle of the page. This notice of defect, what was this notice of defect issued for?
Defective lateral.
Okay. And there's an X where it says dye was placed in a cave-in, correct?
Yes.
What is a cave-in?
A cave-in is a hole that's either in the street or is either on the pavement, one or the other, caused by the deterioration of dirt coming from underneath the ground, and it causes a hole due to a lateral defect, or it could be the vent pipe defect.
Okay, so either type of defect could potentially cause a cave-in, correct?
That's correct.
And what is a lateral?
A lateral is it leads from your home, actually from the curb to the sewer, and it dumps the waste or your sewage water, rainwater, depending on the system that you have in your neighborhood. It all dumps into the sewer.
And why is it important that a lateral is functioning properly?
If not, you will have a cave-in, you'll have a depression, you will have a sewage backup in your home. It will become inhumane to live in there, unsanitary.
Okay.
And that's about it.
And how did you determine that there was a defective lateral at this property?
Well, when we do the dye test, once we determine the dye showed in the sewer, we will send someone else in the sewer, a physical human being in the sewer, to go and track down the dye. Once they find the dye and it's coming through a lateral or it's coming through the sewer bricks or anything like that, we would dye test up top to obtain the cause of the defect, and we would we'll say, okay, dye test one above and one below, and that's how we become. That's how we find out exactly pinpointing where this dye is coming from and where the defect is happening in.
And in this particular case, when you dye tested, you saw that the dye was coming through the lateral at 1909 South 4th Street?
That's correct.
And whose responsibility is it to maintain their laterals?
The lateral is a part of the home. Anything from the house to the sewer belongs to the homeowner. Once it connects to the sewer and there's a breach around the sewer, the city will pick that part up. But the homeowner is ultimately responsible for any piping that connects to the sewer.
And I'm currently showing you on my screen the water system responsibility chart.
Yes.
And the lateral in this particular diagram, would that be letter D, where I have my cursor?
Yes, it is.
And that indicates that this is the customer's responsibility to maintain?
That's correct.
And that is why the notice of defect was issued to Brendan Shuck, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to show you another document, Mr. Alexander, just bear with me.
Yes.
Okay. So I've shared my screen again. Do you see that yet, Mr. Alexander?
There's nothing
No,
up on the screen, Ms. Athanasiadis.
Okay. Let's try again. Okay. Do you see what I'm showing you, Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
This is City Exhibit 2, page 9. Now, this is another record, and I'll submit to you, you were not the inspector that went out on this particular date. But is this a record you've seen while you were reviewing the records for this case?
Yes.
Okay. And this is a reinspection record. And what is the date of the last reinspection that was done for this property?
You have 9/29/2022.
Okay. And if you can follow along, does it say found no repairs made to defective lateral at 1909?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Okay. And there's some more information. The customer has L&I appeal case. It references the case number.
Yes.
Okay. And so, to your knowledge, Mr. Alexander, the lateral remains defective at 1909 South 4th Street, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I have no further questions for Mr. Alexander, Chairman.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Shuck? At this time, you have the opportunity to ask questions of Mr. Alexander with respect to his testimony. And ask questions, that is, with respect to any statements he's made, and whether you have a further follow-up or would like him to verify something. If you have any information that you want to provide to this board regarding your appeal, that you will have an opportunity to do after the city has presented its case. So do you have any questions with respect to the testimony that's been provided by Crew Chief Calvin Alexander?
I guess the only question I would have is it possible, or has it ever happened, where a pipe, a lateral, I should say, was mistaken by an inspector for the wrong address?
I'm just going to note my objection calls for speculation, but Mr. Alexander.
I'll overrule your objection and ask Mr. Alexander to answer the question.
It's possible, but sometimes no, it's not that possible. When you see the dye coming through, and we dye test from street level, and we have a physical person there, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's not going to happen. We actually physically look at it, and we have competent people to make sure we don't make mistakes, because we don't want to come to court.
Very good. Thank you for your answer. Any further questions, Mr. Shuck?
With regards to his testimony, no.
Okay. Ms. Athanasiadis, do you have any further witnesses?
I do not, Chairman Pincus. I would just like to mark and move into evidence City 1, City 2, and the customer responsibility chart at this time.
The documents are accepted for the record. Mr. Shuck, do you wish to provide your explanation or answer with respect to the city's finding of a defective lateral at your property?
I mean, with human, to say it's impossible to misidentify a pipe when we're dealing with human beings, I don't believe that you guys actually turned my water off by mistake, and that was a human error. So to say it's not possible for the water department to make an error, I can't really get behind that. But currently we have there's no problem structurally. There's no cave-ins. We have no water backup. And the only evidence that I have of a defective lateral is the inspector telling me that it was defective. And I guess really what I was kind of looking for, I talked to the water department about possibly getting some type of video footage of my actual lateral to show actual proof that it's defective, and they said they want to do that. So really, I was just looking for further evidence that it is defective, because right now it's not causing anybody any problems on our street. And to me, it seems kind of, I don't want to inconvenience my whole block to fix something that's not causing any issues at this point.
Well, there was a report. Apparently the city didn't voluntarily come out and identify that there was a defective lateral. So someone called in and identified, I know there was a pothole, but a cave-in the street. So it may or may not be causing anyone a serious problem, but it's a condition that someone brought to the attention of the city. And typically, if you're saying that the city has not correctly identified the defect as being in your lateral, we would ask, and since this was reported in May of 2022, we would have expected that you perhaps, unfortunately, it's not going to be without expense, engage the services of a plumber to come out and determine and confirm whether or not the city's findings were accurate. And if that plumber has a report that he or she then prepares, you could present that to counter the determination made by the city. But unless I'm mistaken, you haven't done that.
A video of the lateral from the plumber, and it was, he couldn't have told. I'm sorry, I did email a video of the lateral to the board admins at phila.gov. And he couldn't determine, he said the water was flowing into the main pipe, but he couldn't determine whether it was leaking out or not.
I believe there was is that the one picture that you submitted,
there's
sir?
There's a video of that email.
Is the city, I do recall receiving something, I didn't run it. Mr. Wade, are you able to locate that? I received from Mr. Motto an extensive list of documents that were submitted. And the only problem is I have to find it. Was it provided to Ms. Athanasiadis?
Chairman Pincus, if I may,
Mr. Chair, I received the same video, but I couldn't determine what it was a video of.
Well, let's hear from Ms. Athanasiadis.
Chairman Pincus, I received a video from Ms. Alford, but my understanding was that was relating to the neighboring property, 1911 South 4th Street, that was evidence provided by 1911 South 4th Street.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I have the photographs up. I don't have the video, but the photograph is clearly labeled from Mr. Shuck as being photographs of the lateral pipe for 1909 South 4th Street. And the defect is clearly obvious because there's an animal in the pipe. So I think
The animal's coming from the main pipe.
Can Mr. Wade, if it was supplied to you and us by the city, is it possible for Mr. Wade to find that email and put it up so that we can all see it?
Yeah.
And just for the record, Chairman Pincus, I never received.
Is this the video in question?
Is this?
Is that the video that Mr. Shuck you submitted?
I'm
It is. It is.
I mean, this is the video I have for 1909. This is the.
Okay, there's one defect right here.
The guy right there.
You want that too.
These are the neighbors, 1911. This might be our footage.
I see, okay. Would you identify yourself for the record, please?
My name's Sloan Murray, my
Oh.
husband Frank Figueroli, but I won't know until we get to the end of the video
Oh,
because it's a
okay.
very distinct ending.
All right, give me 1 second.
You're here on this case, you're not here on any other case, you're here as witnesses on this case?
No, we have our own case.
Today.
Oh, you do? All right, just a moment, please.
So just for that, so
Oh, you
10 days after
All right.
we got our notice, they got their notice.
I
So my
see, okay, so
question is
they're
how-
here on their case, I get it. Case number 5 is 1911 South 4th Street. So we're not hearing their case if they submitted video. So let's confirm whose video we have so that we can all look at it. And if the city, you were responsive if you said you've supplied it. And unfortunately, it's possible that when the board sent it to us, the staff, they did not send it to Ms. Athanasiadis. But
Would it be possible to fast forward to the very end of the video?
The
And I'll be
video's
able
all
to tell you if it's ours or not.
34 seconds left.
Yeah, that's our video. That's for 1911 South 4th Street.
Okay, in the email, this email that I received, it says 1909. Let me see if I have anything else.
I sent it on.
that's the only one I recall seeing. Mr. Shuck, I don't know how computer accurate or literate you are, but if you are able to put up on your screen the video.
Okay, I have another, I think I found another video.
I could pull it up on mine if it's necessary.
Hold on 1 second.
Is that the video, Mr. Shuck?
This is the video, yeah.
Could we go off the record for a quick second so I could just have, Mr. Alexander has never viewed this video. And so just so I can have him follow along.
Do we need to go off the
No,
record?
well, I mean, Calvin, Mr. Alexander,
Mr. Alexander, are you present? Are you? I see you're muted, but I see your face, so I assume you can watch the video with us. I think we should watch it. I think we should accept it. If Mr. Shuck submitted it to the board.
Mr. Alexander, a video is going to be played that was supplied by Mr. Shuck. It was never provided to me, so I would just ask you to view the video, make any notes you deem appropriate, and advise if you see anything that changes the issuance of the notice of defect.
And Ms. Athanasiadis, if you need time to consult with Mr. Alexander regarding his opinion or analysis and have this matter either deferred for consideration after we hear the next case, which may also be yours, or to a later hearing date, we can do that. Because I think you're entitled, since you didn't see it, to have your witness make his analysis.
Thank you, Chairman Pincus.
Okay, are we okay? Mr. Wade, are you able to run it?
The video? Sure.
Yes.
And Mr. Pincus, while we're running it, can you take a look at the chat I sent you, sir?
Just a moment.
Okay, that was it. That was sewer.
That's not how it happened.
Oh, something. The camera ground.
Is it running? There it is.
Defect right there.
What am I looking at? The lateral?
Yes.
Okay. If you die test, like y'all doing that, they didn't die test. No, because you want to see the defect.
How long is this video running for?
I think it's almost
I-
It goes underwater. Okay, so he went through the vent pipe. Yeah,
Is
pulled it back.
that, all right, is that the video? Is that the end of it?
Yes.
Thank you. So before we go back to Ms. Athanasiadis and Mr. Alexander,
Yes, sir.
I don't know about the rest of my board members, but I'm not expert enough to determine what that video proves with respect to the condition of the lateral at your property. And you don't have an expert here to tell us what that video shows us. In your own words, what do you believe it shows us?
You're asking me, right, Chairman?
Well, you submitted it as
Yes,
evidence
I
to
was just
indicate that.
verifying you're talking to me. The plumbers I spoke with said, obviously, we don't have any backup and the water's flowing to the main pipe. They couldn't determine whether or not there was a leak in there from the video. So I guess what I'm looking for is if I'm going to go get permits, close the street off and dig it up, is I have no problem doing that. I want hard evidence that the pipe is actually defective other than, somebody told me it was.
I hear you, but unfortunately, the quote unquote expert you hired, you're saying wasn't able to tell you whether or not you had a defective lateral, and apparently didn't suggest some other way to try to verify that. Like, I mean, we saw a camera, so normally if you run a camera through the lateral, it should show whether or not it's caved in or not. But you don't have that expert here to testify.
Right.
Is there anything further you want to say
Just
to
to
us?
add that the cave-in that was across the street from us, there was another house and their pipes were defective. That's what was causing the cave-in. It had nothing to do with our pipe. So that's where, again, we have 0 issues on our block at the current moment. There's no structural damage. There's no water backup anywhere. I just asked, again, if we are going to dig our street up, get permits and block it off, to me, it just, we're going to do all this for something that's causing nobody on our block any issues at the present moment.
Well, I understand. Okay, well, and there's no indication, at least in the times when I've lived in my house for 40 years and I've replaced both my sewer line and my water line. And I don't recall, but I don't live in your neighborhood, that we had to block off the street in order to do that replacement. But that may or may not happen in your case. But I guess, Ms. Athanasiadis, do you need to discuss? Yes,
Mr. Chair, I have a question for Mr. Alexander from the Water Department. In reference to that video we just saw, I noticed.
Hold on a moment. I don't know whether Ms. Athanasiadis needs to discuss it with Mr. Alexander.
That's correct. My apologies, Ms. Athanasiadis. Go ahead.
Not a problem.
But she needs to discuss it with her client before we ask him any questions. Do you want to go off the record, maybe talk to him on the phone? And then
Yes,
come
if I
back?
could, Chairman Pinkish, just a few minutes and be back on record.
And I assume you have the next case as well, is that correct?
Chairman, I have case, yes, number 1, number 2, number 5, number 6, and number 13.
And it would appear that maybe we should discuss number 5 and hear that one next, since it seems to be related.
Yes, and I'm sure Ms. Murray and Mr. Figueroa would appreciate that as well, yes.
Okay. So,
Mr. Chair, just a quick question.
Yes.
Is it possible that we can continue this case, send the inspectors back out there and give us a full report back? Is that possible? I see Ms. Annapolis is shaking her head.
No, Mr. Washington, I am letting you finish your statement. I would just make any objection. Dye testing was done. Mr. Alexander was present on site. He witnessed the dye. At this point, there's been nothing shown or provided. I mean, obviously, I'd need to speak with him regarding the video, but the onus to be put back on the Philadelphia Water Department to go do additional testing. They've done it. They issued a notice. There's a someone's contesting the notice. They need to show that their lateral is functioning properly. But if I could just have some time to speak to Mr. Alexander regarding the video. And my understanding is there were also photos provided, if we could receive those as well, because we didn't view those either.
And they may need to be presented, and they may need to be shared with Mr. Shuck, and he may need to take those photos to his expert as well. So it may be
Excuse me,
appropriate to
Mr. Chairman.
continue. Yes.
I apologize for interrupting, but those photographs were submitted by Mr. Shuck to board's administration on December 1st. They were sent to us by Mr. Motto. I've been trying to see if I'm trying to figure out how I could forward them to everybody else, but we should all have them. And I think Mr. Alexander would need to see them because there's clearly an issue with a pipe there. I don't know what pipe it is, but.
Could you tell me, because I have all the exhibits submitted by Mr. Motto. These are photos in addition to the film that we just.
Yes, in addition to the video submitted by Mr. Shuck on December 1st at 11:31 a.m. to board's administration. It was sent to us yesterday, and it's referenced as case number 1909 rather, I'm sorry, South 4th Street, exhibits forwarded.
Do you have the time?
If I may interrupt, I did just forward the email to the board members. I located it and forwarded the email again.
Thank you, Ryan.
And Ms. Penn, you're correct. I was looking at those as well.
I'm not getting that email. Why am I having these little problems?
I don't think Ms. Athanasiadis has received those photographs from Mr. Shuck. And so those certainly need to be provided so that everybody can see them, both sides. If they're being submitted by him as evidence of it not being his lateral, they need to be provided to the city.
I'm looking at what appears to be the film that we just saw.
Well, Mr. McSherry just provided a current email, Mr. Pincus.
The photographs are included in the body of the email. They're not attachments. They were actually in the actual body of the email itself. The photos. The only attachment was indeed the video. But
I see the photos, and they would appear to show some sort of. There's an animal.
Yes, squirrel.
Squirrel.
Mr. McSherry, would you, if I put my email address in the chat, could you kindly forward that email to me so then I could provide it to Mr. Alexander?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
But this photo that I'm looking at would indicate that there is a defect in the lateral. And this was provided to us by Mr. Shuck.
I think we need an expert to determine, whether that's a defect. I don't know. I'm not an expert.
Well,
Mr. Pincus,
Chairman,
go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman, if I might, I think that Mr. Alexander and Ms.
That's correct.
Athanasiadis need to look at the photographs. The only person who's present right now who could describe what that might be, it seems to me, is Mr. Alexander. So I would suggest that we table this case while he has an opportunity to review those films. We could go on to number 5 or whatever case you think is appropriate. Rather than continue the matter, if we could just postpone it, come back to it after Mr. Alexander has seen all of the evidence, and then we would be getting a clearer picture of what we're looking at.
I agree. I think Mr. Athanasiadis needs time to consult with Mr. Alexander. But she has all of the water department cases. So perhaps if the city is ready, we could go to the first tobacco case and give her the opportunity to consult with her witness on this matter. And we obviously, on case number 5, which is 1911 South 4th Street, the appellants, Frank Figueroa, if I'm saying that correctly, you also submitted video, is that correct?
Yes, we did.
And I don't know whether Ms. Athanasiadis has seen that, but if not, either Mr. McSherry or Mr. Wade can make sure that and I assume Mr. Alexander is going to be the witness in that matter as well. Perhaps that can be discussed or presented and looked at as well before we proceed and go back to your cases. Is that agreeable, Ms. Athanasiadis? And is that agreeable to you, Mr. Shuck, that we defer for a few moments so the city has an opportunity to consult? You may need to get your expert to come back out there, but let's find out what the city's opinion is based on this evidence.
That's fair.
Is that all right, Ms. Athanasiadis? I think I'm getting your name right finally. You're muted.
Apologies. You are getting my name right. For case number 5, I will represent to the board. That video Mr. Alexander has seen, and he can opine on that because that was provided. It has been reviewed, so I'm happy to address that in that case in chief. If the board would like to move on to a tobacco case, I can conference with Mr. Alexander. I'll forward him the photos that I believe I received and the video, and we can return back after the tobacco case. That I don't want to hold the board up after the tobacco case the board hears.
Very good. All right, so we'll take a recess on this matter and hear the next case.
Thank you, Chairman.
Case number 7. Hearing appeal number HA 2021-000-522. Fresh and Tasty Donuts Incorporated, 4096 Lancaster Avenue, represented by Paul Herron.
Hello.
Case number 7, someone here for Fresh and Tasty Donuts?
Yes.
I'm looking, counsel?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Paul Herron for the appellant.
Very good. And Ms. Curley for the city, is that correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
There's Paul Herron and there's a Paul Herron.
Yeah, I have my witness here. She's also on a device that has my designation.
Okay, because you're getting feedback from that one.
Well, so he has in his office the someone who will be his principal witness on the matter. So that's fine, and we can proceed.
No, that wasn't my issue. Is the feedback.
Oh.
I can move her out of my particular office and try to eliminate that.
Can you do that?
Yes.
Or if she can,
Next door.
if she's in your office, she can just turn our machine off and we can use yours.
I'm sorry. What was that, Chairman?
Is she able to share your device?
Yes. Yes.
Voting.
Yeah, come over here. We'll do it that way.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Washington. We're still echoing.
Yeah, I'm gonna just shut off my device. Okay, we should be good.
Very good. All right, Ms. Curley.
Yes, board, we are here today on the appeal filed by the business Fresh and Tasty Donuts, number 7 on the board's list, located at 4096 Lancaster Avenue. This is an appeal regarding the health department's denial of a tobacco retailer permit because the permit was not renewed timely. The department will show through our 2 witnesses, Ms. Jody Wilkins and Ms. Nikisha Johnson, that this tobacco retailer permit wasn't renewed. It was received in 2020. They failed to renew it prior to the November 1st, 2020 deadline. And then, which is the 60-day date prior to the final deadline on December 31st, 2020. And therefore that permit expired because they failed to renew it in a timely manner. Any new tobacco retailer permit that they apply for is now subject to the school zone and density cap requirements set forth in the code and the regulations. So as such, they are not eligible to renew the license that is not subject to those requirements. So at the conclusion of the hearing, we'll ask to affirm the city's denial of that license, or permit rather, sorry.
Okay, you have a witness.
Yes, our first witness would be Miss Jody Wilkins, who I do see present on the screen.
Yes.
Ms. Wilkins, I'm looking to see you on my screen. There you are. And you've already raised your hand. Would you do it again, please?
Sure.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give today will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Ms. Wilkins, can you explain to the board what your role is, who your employer is, and what your role is there?
I work for the City of Philadelphia Health Department, Tobacco Enforcement. My job is to oversee the tobacco retailer permit issuances for those who are selling tobacco and e-cigarettes in the City of Philadelphia.
How long have you been doing this?
Over 11 years.
Are you familiar with the property at 4096 Lancaster Avenue?
Yes, I am.
Can you explain to the board how you're familiar with that property?
Yes, that's one of the businesses that failed to renew for 2021. And therefore, the business contacted me about trying to renew in 2021. And I was telling them that they were not eligible to renew since the time had passed.
Okay, so to be clear, have you been able to review all of the department records on this property?
Yes.
And business?
Yes.
And additionally, you had conversations with the business owner?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to request to share my screen. Ms. Wilkins, let me know when you can see this.
Okay. I see it now.
Ms. Wilkins, this is the appeal submitted by the appellant, correct?
Yes.
And do you recognize the second page of this document?
Yes, I do.
Can you explain to the board what this is?
This is a notice of right to appeal to the L&I Review Board that is issued by the Health Department, not issued by me directly, but by a representative of the Health Department, to let them know that they can file an appeal based on our denied decision. And this was a denial now because it was a new application due to the past renewal date.
And it is dated January 27th, 2021.
Yes.
And explain to me why this notice was issued.
It was issued because they were requesting to get a current, at that time, current permit for 2021. And they were told to make a file request for LNI for an appeal due to the fact that they could not get it due to the school zone. They could not renew or can apply for a new one at this time.
I understand. So when approximately did this business have a valid tobacco retailer permit license?
The last permit was ending with, the last full permit was January 1 of 2020 and it ended in December 31st of 2020.
And did they renew that permit that expired December 2020?
No.
Okay. As a result, they are now subject to the school zone and density cap requirements?
Correct.
And that is why this notice was issued, correct?
Correct.
Because they are, and to be clear, the reasoning provided in the center of this for reason for permit status is that it is located within 500 feet of a school.
Correct.
And when they get this notice, is the retailer allowed to be placed on a waiting list in case either the school closes or the density cap changes?
With the school zone, they cannot be placed on a waiting list at all. They're not eligible for a permit whatsoever.
And you notified the business owner of this, correct?
Yes.
Moving on to City Exhibit 2, do you recognize this document?
Yes, that is a email that was sent to the retailer for August the 7th of 2020 to let them know that their 2021 renewal permit is now due. And so that's their first notice.
And can you explain to the board how the health department goes through the renewal process, advising the public on those requirements?
We send everyone an email at the beginning of the renewal season, which was started August 1st of 2020, to let them know that now it's time to renew for the following year, which is for 2021. And they get 3 of these notices, depending on if they have not applied during the times that we send the letter out. So this is the first notice that lets everybody know that the season is open.
Thank you. And so this email that's dated August 7th, 2020, that is sent to this email address that's right here, the 2 email address.
Yeah.
How does the health department receive that email address?
Is placed on application. When they renew, they can put their email address on there. If they want to change it at the time of the application, they can change it so that we can redirect, their correspondence with the email that they provide. So this was the last email on file for the 2020 record.
And when you're saying they, you mean the business owner, correct?
Yeah. Correct.
The business owner has to change. If there's any change to that email address, the business owner has to change it.
Yeah, correct.
And moving down this first notice that was sent, what was can you explain the deadline that's in the first paragraph or the first sentence of the first paragraph?
The on-time renewal goes up to November 1st of 2020. So they had from August to November 1st to renew on time.
After which there's a late penalty.
Yes, it's $50 late fee from November 2nd to December 31st.
Okay, and can you read I believe it's the 3rd sentence where it says if you fail to renew by December 31st.
Yeah, if you fail to renew by December 31st, you will be required to submit a new application and meet all applicable requirements, including the school zone and retail density restrictions.
And moving to the 2nd paragraph, there's instructions on how to renew. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Going to move down now to the 5th page of my exhibit packet. What are we looking at here?
This is the 2nd notice that went out on October 1, 2020. We sent out the 2nd notice when there's no application on file between August and just about maybe towards the end of September before we pull the records to see who hasn't renewed. So then a 2nd letter goes out to those who had not at that time. This business did not renew. So we sent them a 2nd notice dated October 1st.
Of 2020.
2020.
Moving down to this page 7 on my exhibit packet, this 3rd and final notice. What is this document?
Yes, this is the last renewal that was sent for via email. This is dated December 1st, 2020. This is the third notice to let them know that they have until the end of December to renew. And then also one is mailed to the business as well. So this was emailed to them, but they also got a mailed copy.
And the email address, that's the same as we've discussed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the mailing address, that's the, I think it's like halfway through the page, 4096 Lancaster Avenue.
Yes.
That's the location of the business as well.
Yes, correct.
And in your review, strike that, as of January 1st, 2021, had this business renewed their tobacco retailer permit?
Yeah, at that time, then the deadline has ended and therefore no one is able to renew. The renewal button is taken off site.
And when you say offsite, that's their online application?
Yeah, or online application is taken off offline. So no one is able to renew at that time.
In reviewing the health department's records, was there any indication that anyone, either the business owner or an agent thereof, had tried to change either the email address or the mailing address for these notices?
No, that has not.
And were you, I think you indicated previously, did you have any conversations with the business owner?
Yes, I did. The conversation on January the 25th of 2021 was the time I spoke to someone from the business requesting to try to renew at that time. And they were not able to renew because the button had been removed due to the renewal season being over at that point. So I explained to them that they weren't eligible for a permit.
Did they provide you any reason why they hadn't renewed?
They stated that the owner had COVID and they were in ICU at that time, so that they had closed the business for several months and now wanted to open up again and get their permit back.
And at this time, I think you've already indicated this, but at this time, they're not eligible for a renewal, correct?
That's correct.
I have nothing further for Ms. Wilkins. I would just ask to admit, I think it was city exhibits 1 and 2.
No objection.
We have no objection.
Offer for cross.
Okay, accepted. Mr. Heron, do you have any questions for the city's witness?
Yes, I just have a couple, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Wilkins, could you read off the email address that's reflected on those 3 notices?
Yes, let me get that for you. So the email address that was on file started with SETHANYNUTH@gmail.com.
And is it correct that that's the email, the only email on all 3 notices?
That's correct.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Very good. Ms. Curley, you said, I believe you have another witness.
Very briefly, I'll just be calling Ms. Nikisha Johnson from the Department of Health.
Please proceed.
I believe Ms. Johnson needs to be sworn.
There she is. Hi, Ms. Johnson, you're holding up your right hand. Would you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Johnson, can you very briefly state your employer and what you do for them?
Yes, I am a research and data associate with the City of Philadelphia Health Department.
And just what does that entail? What do you do for us?
I am responsible for data management and data analytic tasks related to the tobacco control program.
And were you asked to look into the property at 4096 Lancaster Avenue?
Yes.
And what did you determine about that property?
Just asked to confirm that this particular location falls within one of our tobacco-free school zones and found that it did.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen very briefly. I think. Sorry. Ms. Johnson, can you see the exhibit that is identified as City Exhibit 3?
Yes.
Just describe to the board what we're looking at here.
Yes, so this is a map showing 4096 Lancaster Ave, which is where this particular retailer has listed their address. You can see the point where the address is indicated by the little red flag in the white circle, and the Philadelphia Water Department stormwater parcel that retailer sits on is outlined in blue. As you can see outlined in green, that is the stormwater parcel that Belmont Charter School sits on. I believe it serves grades K through 12. And the red circle is showing the tobacco-free school zone that is created by the Belmont Charter School. So 500 feet in all directions encompasses that circle. And just for clarity, I've drawn that the point of the edge of the Belmont Charter School stormwater parcel and the edge of the 4096 Lancaster stormwater parcel is 453 feet, which is less than 500 feet.
Thank you. And for clarity, you created this map.
Yes.
Okay. I would just ask for the admission of City Exhibit 3. I have nothing further for Ms. Johnson.
No objection to the exhibit.
That's fine. We'll accept it. Is that the end of your
Yes.
witness
Yep.
testimony?
Offer for cross.
No cross.
No questions?
No questions.
Ms. Curley, is that the extent of your witnesses?
Yes, thank you, board.
Mr. Heron, do you want to present your client's case?
Yes, please. Do you want to swear her in?
I do. Would you identify yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Von Hui Chia. I'm the manager running of the business.
Could you slowly state your name and spell it so that our reporter can write it down?
My name Von Hui, Bounhuoy, and the last name Chea. I'm the one that running that business.
You're the renter of the business.
Running the business.
Oh, you're running the business. Are you the owner or operator of the business? Let me ask you first, you've got your right hand up. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony, would you please raise your hand, that you give today will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, let's confirm through your attorney exactly how you are related to the entity that's filed the appeal.
Yes, if I can explain, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Che is the daughter of the owner and she runs the business for her mother. Her mother doesn't speak English, but you know, she's familiar with all the circumstances, the relevant circumstances.
Ms. Curley, that's a little out of our normal procedural ability that we're not hearing from the owner. Do you have any objection if we hear the testimony from Ms. Che?
Board, I believe the city's position is that since the LLC is represented by an attorney, as is required and makes complete sense of the circumstance. Mr. Heron is representing the LLC and his sole witness is the daughter. So that's how he's choosing to present his case on behalf of his client. And I have no objection. I don't think there's any reason for the city to object. I obviously would defer to, anything Mr. McSherry had to contribute.
Mr. McSherry, I'm fine hearing the testimony unless you think we should have some legal basis to exclude it.
I'm fine with it as well.
Thank you. Let's proceed, Mr. Heron.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, may I just bring one other item to your attention? I believe Ms. Curley has agreed to stipulate to some of the facts that were contained in exhibits that I produced. Specifically, I provided a stock purchase agreement, a corporate minute, as well as a resignation. So if Ms. Curley is comfortable, I'd just like to speak about those exhibits rather than having testimony on them. I think we can shortcut the process.
That's.
Yes, the city is willing to stipulate, Mr. Heron will correct me, but I believe the transfer date was sometime October 2019. And he can clarify the date, and the city has no objection to that transfer. Or to the evidence that that transfer occurred.
Are you able to put that document up just so we can, if we're stipulating to it, it obviously is relevant for some point you wish to make, Mr.
I think the sole purpose is to show the date of the transfer and that the transfer was transferred to the new owner, if that's my understanding.
That
The
is
new
correct.
owner, the new owner being, let's see what he shows.
Let's see if I can bring the, are you able to see,
Oh, I see a window right now. I do recall seeing that. Again, I have some difficulty finding these exhibits on my computer.
yeah, I'm not sure why it's not sharing.
What is the point you wish to make through
Well,
this?
first of all, it's a stock purchase agreement, which is dated September 23rd, 2019, between Sethany Nuth, that's SETHANYNUTH, and Kim Hu, KIMHOUHOENG, which demonstrates that the stock in the owning corporation Fresh and Tasty Donuts, Inc. was sold by Ms. Nuth to Ms. Home. And the other documents, Ms. Nuth also resigned as an officer and director of the corporation, and then there were some corporate minutes authorizing that corporate action. Those are those materials, and that would be what I would just ask the board to glean from those documents.
So the purpose of that is to show that the owner at all times remained as Fresh and Tasty Donuts and a corporation, notwithstanding the sale of the shares.
Correct. And also that Ms. Nuth, as of that date, was no longer associated with the corporation. And that the sole corporate principal was Kim Hu Huang, who happens to be the witness's mother.
Fine.
Okay. If that's acceptable, I'll just ask Ms. Che to give some testimony.
Let's proceed. The
Thank
city said they would stipulate to that.
Very well. Ms. Che,
Do you want to take this document or whatever we're seeing on this, what we're not seeing on the screen off?
Sure.
Very good.
Okay. So, Ms. Che, can you just tell us, we've already talked about the fact that your mother purchased this business in 2019, is that correct?
Yes.
And what's your involvement with the business from that point on into the present time?
Because in that time she already renewed for the permit for.
No. I just asked you what your involvement with the business was. How are you involved with the business?
It's good.
No, how are you involved?
Oh. That's my mom bought the business from the Sethany.
Okay, and what do you do with respect to the business?
We make it
Do you operate the business?
yeah, we operate the business and we run over from the Sethany.
Okay, with regard to the tobacco permit, you purchased the business, or your mother purchased it in 2019. Was the tobacco permit renewed for 2020, as far as you know?
Yeah,
Who renewed the tobacco permit at that time?
Oh, that the Sethany pen, that the old owner.
The old owner?
Yeah, that we bought the share from her. She already did it.
Okay, and had you renewed, or had your mother renewed the license during 2020, or was it all handled by the former owner, Ms. Nuth?
The license we renew it every year, but on the permit we didn't get any paperwork. That's why we miss it.
when you say you didn't get any paperwork, what you were talking with respect to the renewal for 2021?
Yeah, I tried to renew for 2021, but I didn't get any information because that's the first time that the old one, that the old owner, they renew for us.
The old owner renewed the
Yeah,
2020 license.
2020, and then the email that they sent it, I didn't get it because we not get in touch with the old owner no more.
So the emails that that Ms. Wilkins testified about that were sent to an email address for Sethany Newth, did you ever see or receive those emails?
I didn't use that email. That belonged to the old owner that we bought the share from her.
And did you have any contact with Ms. Newth after the purchase of the business, after your mother purchased the business? Did you or your mother have any contact with Sethany Newth?
No, because she lost contact. She changed phone number. I don't know, cannot contact with her.
Okay. And did you receive any notice to renew the tobacco permit for 2021?
I didn't receive it. If I receive it, I gonna do it in on time, because you see, even like that, I already knew the license. I wonder too, because in that situation, they got a pandemic, the COVID, and the protest with the Mr. Floyd died too. The all store have been destroyed, and some store have been closed for long day.
All right, let me ask you this. You mentioned COVID. Did COVID have any impact on the operation of the business during the latter part of 2020?
It is, because we all got the COVID. I got the proof of the COVID test too. And my daughter, my two daughters and my son, my mom also got the COVID. And the other employee got COVID too. That's why the store have been closing.
Okay, and you also mentioned protests. What are you referring to?
Because we scared.
No, what kind of protests are you referring to?
The protest from Miss Floyd before, from 2020, they broke everything. They broke all the store and they steal everything from the store. Like the store is close to me, they've been destroy it.
Okay, you're talking about the protests involving George Floyd?
Yeah.
And you say that the store was closed as a result of the protests?
Uh-huh.
And did that affect your ability to operate the store?
It is, because we scared. They gonna rob because like even you call the police, even police see like the store have been destroyed. The store have been like, all the people go and steal everything inside, even because police say, just let them do it. They cannot do nothing with the protesting.
Okay, now as for getting back to the permit, you knew that the permit had to be renewed, is that correct? The permit for 2021, you knew that it had to be renewed?
I know have been renewed, but I didn't get any information. And that the first time, and that's why I don't know how to do it.
Okay, did you do anything with respect to trying to renew the permit? Did you take?
Yeah, I tried to, I think in that time I tried to call the city too, but nobody picked it up. And then I tried to do by online. They say like the school soon or something like that. And then I keep calling, and then one day I meet with the Jody, and then I tell Jody the reason, and then Jody tell me like now it's over, she cannot help me, so I need to file for appeal and tell them the reason.
Okay, now I believe Ms. Wilkins did mention that you spoke to her.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I did spoke with Jody.
Okay, now that was after January 1st, correct?
Yeah, because like, yeah.
Okay, if you knew how to renew the permit and you could have been able to get online, is there any reason why you wouldn't have renewed the permit?
Because like the email address, it belongs to the old owner.
So in other words, you never got those emails, is that correct?
Never, I not use that email.
Okay, now did you renew the permit with the state? The tobacco permit with the state?
Uh-huh.
And is the tobacco permit with the state still current?
Yeah, it expired like 2023.
Okay. I believe that's all I have.
Yeah, because in that time,
Just hold on. I did have a variety of exhibits which I forwarded, but for some reason, again, as I say, I'm not able to share them. If the board is in receipt of them and Ms. Curley is in receipt of them, I would just ask that they be admitted.
I know we received a bunch of exhibits. I'm trying to,
I can describe what they consist of, if that would make the process easier.
no, I have them up on, I'm just opening them right now on my screen, as a matter of fact.
I don't know why I can't share them, but
Ms. Curley, did you receive these documents?
I did. I can't actually find them at this exact moment, but I'm looking for them.
Well, I show it as an email that I received from the city. That, let me see here. Did Mr. Herron send it from June Link? Was sent, it would have been sent, let me see, I'm trying to find it, the date and time. I received it at, on the 8th at 10:20 a.m.
that's the most current. There was another submission on December the 6th.
I do have it.
Mr. Chairperson, I do have an email from Phil Motto received, believe it was this morning. I think it's addressed to actually me and Chairperson Woodson. I can forward that to you now. Not sure if you received those, but I can forward that to you now.
Let me, give me 1 minute as I, when did you say you received it from Mr. Motto?
I received that at 10:20 this morning, actually.
I think that's the same one I just opened.
Oh, okay.
But that just has the legal documents regarding the stock transfer.
I can go ahead and share my screen. The city's not going to object. We'll have minor relevance objections, but we're not going to object, to their.
Please share your screen. People who are more technologically skilled than I always appreciate.
I don't know about that. I'm definitely not pretending to be that. I believe these are the documents that Mr. Herron is referencing.
That is correct.
Right, so I'll just scroll through them, Mr. Herron. You can just tell
Yeah,
me.
that's the tobacco.
I beg your pardon, Mr. Herron. Ms.
Yes.
Curley, could you please enlarge them a little bit?
My apologies.
Thank you.
That's good.
That's the tobacco products license from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which has an expiration date of 2/28/23.
And the city will just have a minor object as to relevance, since this is a city of Philadelphia matter, so.
It's accepted. It's accepted, but we'll accept the document.
Understood.
This is just the notice that has already been offered by the city with respect to the denial.
That's correct. I'm just gonna keep moving.
And then this is a record concerning one of the employees, Dustin Feng, who was diagnosed with COVID-19 in November of 2020.
I again, I'm going to object based on lack of authenticity, but I understand.
We'll accept it for what it says.
And then this is a medical record for Ms. Che, who is the witness, also indicating that she tested positive for COVID in November 10th of 2020.
Again, we'll accept it for what it is, a medical record.
Thank you.
I believe that's everything.
Very good. Ms. Curley, do you have questions for the witness?
Yes,
You're done, Mr. Herron, is that correct?
You know what, if I may I just ask one more question? Ms. Che, do you know how long this business had a tobacco permit from the city?
It's over 20 years.
Okay.
Nothing happened. This is just like the pandemic happened. That's why.
Okay, that's all I have.
It's only one time, this one. Can you forgive us, please?
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Curley.
Briefly. Ms. Che, did you during during 2020, at any point, did you contact the health department to change the email address associated with this permit?
Oh, because like the first time, I don't know, like they need to change the email. I didn't.
And you didn't do that, correct?
Yeah, I didn't do that.
And you mentioned the store was closed. When approximately was the store closed?
I think like September we've been sick, but like we not take the test of the COVID. And then like on until like November, like we've been sick too much. We cannot eat, we cannot do nothing. And then like we close totally like 1 month for that in that day. And then like we don't know, like you know what, we don't know about that the permit supposed to be do it by themselves, because I didn't get any information.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at any point, did you, when the store was closed during that time, did you set up a forwarding address for the mail at your business?
Oh, you know what? The store had been closed, like the gate had been down. They don't have the mailbox outside. I might be the reason why.
There was no way for mail to be delivered to you there.
No place to put the mail in, because like the gate had to be closed down. We don't have mailbox outside.
Okay.
They are delivery inside the store when the store opened.
And at any point during 2020, did you look on the health department's website about what the requirements were to sell tobacco, including any renewal requirements?
Oh, I'm telling you the truth, I'm not that figured out for that time, because like we've been sick too much, and then like we've been sick too much, and that time in that situation between that they renew it, a lot of happen like that. So that's why the reason.
Okay, thank you, Mr. I have nothing further, board.
Does the board have any questions?
I have
Mr. Washington, and I have a question too.
Ms. Che, have you notified any entity about you becoming a new owner? And give them your new name? Did you give them the new name, the new address, the new phone number?
No, we just buy the share from that old owner. Everything is still the same.
So you never changed any of the information into you or your mother's name?
We just change for the payroll tax. The Freight and Taxi Incorporation, we still keep the same. We only change the owner.
I just want to be clear.
Yeah.
You have not notified anyone with the new phone number or emailing information. No one has been notified.
We didn't renew from the permit license, but we renew from the city, like the license, the store license. The store license.
Mr. Washington is asking if you gave to the city, you may have notified someone else, but if you gave the city your new name of because the ownership, the individual's name, how did you do that?
I go to the license, the store license, like at the, what's that?
Municipal
service. You go to
the big service. Yeah, that one I try to renew the new license too, and then like I cannot reach it, and then I go to the office. But in that time, they not been closed.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
My question is, before all that, before you got the COVID, when you first initially bought the business in September.
And I would just remind the board that
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. I just wanted to remind the board that she had answered that as no, that she had not.
Let's just confirm for the record, just a moment. Thank you for the message. Miss Che, the business was purchased in October of 2020, as I understand it.
2019.
2019. So between 2019 and the end of 2020, did you or your mother or someone connected with the new owners, go to the city and contact the city, either in person, by email or mail, of the change in name, of a new email address, or any other way to get in touch with you before December 31st of 2020.
No.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Washington?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, any further testimony?
No further
Otherwise-
testimony, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Herron, do you want to make if you have argument, would you please make it, and then we'll hear from the city?
Sure. And this is an unfortunate circumstance, which I think resulted from a number of factors, including the pandemic, including the fact that they took over this business and had never really renewed the permit themselves. And what I believe Ms. Che was trying to convey is that when the permit was renewed for the prior year, it was done by this previous owner. So she didn't understand the procedures. And I believe she also stated that she was waiting to hear from the city about renewing it. And because the emails were not being sent to anyone other than the previous owner, she did not become aware of the procedures and the time limit involved in renewing the license. And I guess when she realized that she hadn't gotten a renewal by the end of the year, she reached out to the city, and that's when she spoke to Ms. Wilkins, which Ms. Wilkins was kind enough to testify about. Just from an equitable standpoint, again, it's an unfortunate circumstance. The fact that the city offices were not functioning as normal, I think, contributed to this. But this permit has been held by this business, as Ms. Che testified, for 25 or so years. And it would just be unfortunate for them to not be able to continue to maintain the permit. They made what they believed were all the proper steps to try to keep this going, but unfortunately, they were not in strict compliance. So I would just ask the board to impose some equitable relief and permit this permit to be issued. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herron. I just want to make sure you made a statement. From the statement and the testimony of your witness, and from response to the question that Mr. Washington asked, you made some statement of trying to reach the city, but the statement of your witness was that the contact that was made with the city was not until January of 2021, after the time for renewal of the license had already expired. I didn't hear any testimony contrary to that.
Yeah,
that's either a yes or no, but that's my observation.
Yeah,
let's hear from Ms. Curley, okay?
Sure.
So board, the evidence established today based on the testimony from both Ms. Wilkins and the petitioner is that this tobacco retailer permit was not renewed on time, which is required under both the code and the health department regulations. And as such, she is not eligible for renewal and is subject to all the restrictions for any new application. That evidence is unrefuted, and the further evidence, the further ask, what the petitioner is essentially asking for is exactly equitable relief, which, as the board does not have authority to grant equitable relief for this kind of situation. The petitioner testified multiple times that she did not change she bought that her mother, and she is the manager, bought this property in September 2019, and at no time subsequent to that did she reach out to the Philadelphia Health Department to change the email address, any sort of mailing address, any other contact information for the health department. She admitted that she did not look online to see what any of the regulations or rules about tobacco products and selling them in the city of Philadelphia were. So this is just, this kind of unawareness might be okay for in an unregulated space, but the reality is that tobacco products are a highly regulated product. They're extremely addictive and deadly, and one of the many reasons the health department enforces these regulations so stringently is because of their extremely addictive an extremely addictive carcinogenic product. And for all those reasons, we do ask for retailers to be more responsible and make sure that they are taking all the steps necessary and taking affirmative steps to, to participate in that sale. So for all of those reasons, we would ask for a city affirm today.
Very good. Thank you. We'll now vote the matter. I'll vote first. Regrettably, we are not in a position to grant equitable relief. So I would affirm the city. I vote to affirm the city.
City affirmed.
City affirm.
City affirmed.
City affirm.
All right, thank you. Mr. Heron, you will receive a letter notification and your client can proceed with any further action she wishes under the circumstances. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, did you get my message?
I received a message that Miss Anastasiadis's witness has left. I'm sorry, I did not receive a message.
Yes, that is the message, and she's requesting a continuance on the other two matters, 5 and 13.
Okay.
I think
Ms.
Mr. Wade
Atha-
saw the message as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Athanasiadis. Let us go back to case number, you'll forgive me, Mr. Wade, case number 1, HA 2022-002-594. And I guess you're also, because you said your the notification is that your witness had to leave, that would affect case number 5, HA 2022-002-865. The Figaroles at 1911 South 44th Street, and perhaps another case as well.
Case 13.
Yes, case 13, Chairman, HA 2022-004382. My apologies to the appellants and to the board. I had advised the board or Mr. Wade earlier this morning. My witness unfortunately had a family matter with his son. And that's why I requested, and the board was kind enough to grant that these matters be heard first and kind of go out of order. Unfortunately, my witness stayed as long as he possibly could, but then had to leave for his child. So I would just respectfully request that the matters be continued to the next available hearing date, and that any and all exhibits, videos, documents, pictures be forwarded to me so that the witness can review everything in advance of the hearings.
Mr. Chair, I just want to be clear. Are we talking about case number 5 or case number 1?
We're talking about case number 1, but Ms. Athanasiadis has also requested continuance with respect to case number 5. And we haven't called, we've had at least an appearance for the owners of the property in case number 5. Is the owner of the property in case number 13 present as well?
Yes, I am.
Okay, that is a high O at 1258 South 28th Street, case number HA 2022-004-382.
Yes.
And you've heard the request that the matter that your case be continued and relisted for another date?
Yes.
Okay, because the city doesn't have a witness. And I think Mr. Shuck had his hand up, but I guess I would have a question because you saw the films that were, and the pictures that were submitted with respect to case 1, and you've had an opportunity to consult with your witness. Is the city going to be, if this matter is relisted, did your discussion result in any further action that might be taken between now and a relisting date by the city, so that Mr. Shuck and the owners on the other owners across the street, down the street from them, would know what to? Well, I'm sorry, I did not hear your answer.
I apologize. I believe they're the next door neighbors, 1909, 1911. No, Mr. Alexander reviewed the photos, the video provided, and he had already reviewed the video provided by the appellants for 1911. the city's position regarding the NODs has not changed. City will
And
still.
would you stop for a minute? You said NOD. I assume you mean notice of
A notice of
defect.
defect, I apologize, yes. They would remain issued. They're based on what was provided. It doesn't change the city's position, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, so under the circumstances, we'll grant the request for a continuance. Ms. O, you've seen the two, you've been watching while we were hearing Mr. Shuck's case. I would encourage you and the Figueroa, I'm sorry if I'm murdering the pronunciation of your name, as well as Mr. Shuck. It appears the city's position is that their evidence says that the defects that were reported were in fact accurate. You may need to engage an expert to be able to testify at the next hearing to either affirm or obviously to say that the city's evidence is not correct.
I would just like to point out, if I may, our neighbors
ahead.
across the street at 1908 were responsible for the sinkhole, and the Philadelphia Water Department determined that, and they didn't come out to our property for a year later and then determined these damages were huge.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, who is that speaking?
Would you identify, can I ask you, you've made several statements. Would you identify yourself and raise your right hand, please?
Yes, my name is
Who are
Sloan
you?
Murray.
Say your name again, please.
Sloan Murray,
And where do you live?
1911 South 4th Street.
Do you swear or affirm that the statements or testimony you give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, does that answer your question, Mr. Washington?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so maybe you need the people from 1908 to be witnesses. I can't tell you, you may need to consult with an attorney. But the issue is the city has made a determination that there is a defect in the lateral. I haven't read I'm not sure what the argument is with respect to your property at 1911, but they're contending that their inspections disclosed a defect in the lateral at your property. And you would have to argue or present information or evidence that their findings are incorrect.
We did, we
Okay.
submitted the footage. I would like to review that.
Well, if the city has some photos or pictures, can that be provided to these individuals? And do you have their contact information, Ms. Athanasiadis?
I think what Mr. Figueroa provided on his appeal application, his email address at hotmail.com.
Yes, correct. Correct.
Could you then provide any photographs that the city has to support its findings?
Sure, if there are any photographs, I will provide that to the appellants. I would ask, excuse me?
I'm sorry, the video that we submitted with.
I did receive that. Was there anything else you provided? Or was it just the video?
It was the video and the photo of the city main completely sank and disconnected from our pipe.
Okay, I don't think I received the photo. So I put my email in the chat. If you could send me that photo, I did get a video that my witness had reviewed, and I would just ask.
The photo is just the end of the video. It's just that one, the end of the video. If you
Okay.
pause it at the end, you can see.
Our major gripe is that
We're not,
line sank.
Mr. Figueroa, we're not hearing your case right now. So we're hearing the issue of a continuance. I'm granting a continuance. In the meantime, you have an opportunity, you have the good fortune, I don't know, the good or bad fortune, to have the face and the name of the attorney who's representing the water department. And between now and whenever the matter is next listed, perhaps you can engage in reasonable conversations and find a way to see what needs to be done to resolve this matter. Okay? Your case is continued, as is case number 13 for 1258 South 28th Street. And we'll proceed with the other matters on the calendar. All right, thank you, Ms. O. Thank you, Mr. Figueroa, and thank you, Mr. Shuck.
Thank you,
Mr.
Chairman.
Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I just had a question to see what, if I, with Miss,
Just a moment. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
if what kind of evidence on my case that Miss Athanasiadis had received, just so that I make sure that she receives everything prior to the next continuance, so we don't delay it again.
Yes, I appreciate that, Ms. O. I have not received any, if you've provided any documentation or videos, I have not received any of it. My email address is in the chat.
Okay.
If you could forward me anything you have in advance, and then that way I can review and provide it to, you know, the testifying, so we can get through the cases and not have any delays at the next hearing. And if it changes the city's position, I'll advise that as well.
And then do I have to have the witness who provided the expert thing saying that I had no defect in my line? Should I have him available to?
You can discuss that with Ms. Athanasiadis, okay?
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Wade, are we ready? I guess there's still more cases, water cases to be heard.
Yes, and Ms. Athanadis had one more witness that needed to testify. I'm going to defer to her to see which one she wanted to put on next.
Yes, Mr. Chaitlin, who's been online, he's here for 2 cases, Chairman, and I don't see the property owner for one of the cases in any of the screens. So I would ask maybe we go out of order to do the one where I see the property owner present, because Mr. Chaitlin also has time constraints. So I'd like to get through at least a case today.
Well, no, that's fine, but if you say there's no one present, we can call the case and,
Okay.
All right, so.
It would be, I apologize. I didn't mean to speak over you.
That brings us to case number 3.
It would be case number 2. That I don't know, I haven't seen a property owner present for.
But you have a witness here for case
Yes.
number 2. All right, so Mr. Wade, please call case number 2.
I thought you called case 2 as moot complied. Was that?
Case 3 was moot complied.
Apologies. Case number 2, hearing appeal number HA 2022-002-630. Rocco Santana, 235 East Allegheny Avenue.
Is anyone present for that
Yes,
case?
yes. I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, you have a witness for this case. Where's Mr., I'm looking on my screen for Mr. Santana. Mr. Santana, would you speak again and identify yourself?
Yeah, I'm not Rocio Santana. I'm her son. I'm the owner of the property as well. I'm Hector Garcia.
I'm still looking for you on my screen. Just a moment. Oh, I see. Mr. Garcia, can you open your video? There you go.
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay. You say you're an owner of the property?
Yes.
Are you on the deed?
Yes.
Are you able to confirm that?
I am,
Ms.
Chairman. That is correct. The deed lists Rocio Santana and Hector Manuel Garcia as owners of the property of 235 East Allegheny.
Okay, that's fine then. Mr. Garcia, are you going to be the individual testifying on this matter?
Yes.
Could I ask you to raise your right hand and swear or affirm, if you're able to do so, that you will tell the truth and nothing but the truth in the testimony you give today?
Yes.
Very good. Ms. Athanasiadis, please proceed.
Yes. This case is before the board. Rocio Santana appealed the notice of defect that was served on the property on June 11th, 2022 for the property at 235 East Allegheny. As indicated, Rocio Santana and Hector Manuel Garcia are listed as the owners. On June 9th, 2022, the Philadelphia Water Department went to 235 East Allegheny Avenue as a result of a residential call request from a Madeline Lugo for water buildup in the basement. While on site, a dye test was performed and the dye appeared in the combined system through a defective lateral at 235 East Allegheny Avenue. A notice of defect was issued that day. And as of the most recent reinspection date of October 24th, 2022, no repairs have been made to the property, though it appears that the property is enrolled in the Philadelphia Water Department Help Program. The city would be calling Robert Chaitlin in this matter as a witness.
Very good.
Mr. Chaitlin, can you please state and spell your name for the record?
I'm sorry, Ms. Athanasiadis, Mr. Chaitlin has to be sworn.
Oh, yes.
I don't see him right at the moment.
Robert, please unmute yourself. There we go.
How about now?
Mr. Chaitlin, would you raise your right hand? Are you able, can you swear or affirm that the testimony you will be giving today will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very good. Ms. Athanasiadis.
Thank you.
Please.
Mr. Chaitlin, please state and spell your name for the record.
Robert Chatlin, Chatelain.
Okay, and by whom are you employed?
I am employed by the Philadelphia Water Department and my job title is a sewer maintenance crew chief 1.
Okay, and what are your responsibilities as a sewer maintenance crew chief 1?
We go out and we inspect the sewers, manholes, anything sewer related.
Okay, and how long have you held this position?
I've held this position for over a year.
Okay. And have you issued notices of defect in your capacity?
Daily, we do it every day. We issue notices.
So I'm going to show you some records, Mr. Chatlin, and I'm going to represent to you. You weren't the crew inspector, crew chief, or the inspector who issued the notice of defect in this particular case. But you've indicated you've issued these defects before, correct?
Correct.
And you're familiar with the process to issue a notice of defect?
I am.
Okay. And you reviewed documents that I had provided to you for this property address of 235 East Allegheny Avenue?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. And what is this you're looking at, Mr. Chaitlin?
This is a NOD, a notice of defect. It looks like it was written up on 6/11/22
Okay.
for 235 East Allegheny.
And is this document written up by someone who has personal knowledge and who records the events in
Yes.
the regular course? Let me finish the question. In the regular
Mhm.
course scope of them doing their job?
It is, yes.
And in this particular case, would that be R. Dada and E. Hernandez?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And I'm showing you, we indicated it's a notice of defect. And you indicated it was created on June 11th, 2022. Can you tell the board what the service address listed on this notice is?
Yes, it says 235 East Allegheny.
Okay, and in the middle of the page, it says a dye was placed in a cave-in, is that correct?
Yes, and it shows positive through a lateral.
Okay. And in the comment section, it says defective lateral cross connection?
Correct.
Okay. And why is it important, or let me backtrack, what is a cave-in?
A cave-in is a cavity either on the concrete, the sidewalk, it could be on a lawn, it could be in the blacktop. It's basically a cavity in the ground that can accept water.
Okay. And what is a lateral?
A lateral is the pipe that connects you to a city sewer.
Okay, and why is it important that a lateral be free and clear and be properly functioning?
Because if it's not properly functioning, it's not going to drain properly, which is going to cause backup, sewage, or unsafe inhabitants in the house. And then for the outside, it can create a hazard for pedestrians, cars. As it breaks down, it allows dirt to access the sewer. So now you're getting mud and debris entering the sewer now, which is all a hazard.
Okay. And whose responsibility is it to fix and maintain a defective lateral?
It is the homeowner's responsibility.
Okay, and I'm just gonna show you the customer responsibility chart. Do you see what I'm showing you, sir?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and the lateral in this photograph would be letter D, where it says under customer responsibility, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and can you share with the board what a dye test is?
So a dye test is where we place dye, which dye is food coloring. We first determine if it's taking water. So once we know it's drinking water, we know that water is going somewhere. I add dye and we look where that dye shows up.
Okay, and when you say we, who is the we you're referring to?
Me and other crew members, which are inspectors. I'm a foreman, and I work with inspectors.
Okay, and what would, when you see dye, what does that indicate?
Depending where you see it at, it's going to indicate a defect.
Okay, and in this particular case, dye was shown?
Correct. In this particular case, the dye test was shown and that dye was positive through the lateral.
Okay. Just give me a second. I'm gonna share my screen with you and okay. Okay, I'm showing you, can you see what I have on my screen?
I can, yes.
I apologize, I know it's not very clear. Can you see on this record the last date that a re-inspection was done for the property?
It looks as though it says 10/24/22.
Okay, and am I reading it correctly, where it says found no repairs made to the defective lateral? Customers
Correct.
on help program with no permits in system and no new dig up in street in front of property?
Yes, you read that correctly.
Okay, so as we sit here today, December 8th, 2022, the lateral at 235 East Allegheny remains defective, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I have no further questions for this witness at this time. Chairman Pincus?
Very good. Mr. Garcia, you will have an opportunity to explain what information or you have to explain the circumstances at your end. The questions or the opportunity for you right now is, do you have any questions regarding the statements made by Inspector Chatelain?
Yeah. All right, so I have a question. Does the rain affect the dye test? Because it was a really bad storm. It was raining when they went to the property to do the dye test.
No, the rain will not affect the dye test.
And another thing, right?
Mhm.
It wasn't water going in there into that hole was there. The street is brand new now. There's no hole in the street. So there's no problem going on.
Well, wait, I guess that might be part of your statement, unless you want to, I guess, based on what you're raising, if the street was repaired, when was the repair made in relation to the date of the last inspection that the water department made on October the 24th of this year?
I can't give you the exact date, but it was after they showed up.
In October.
Was it in October?
Mr. Chatelain, would you have any record of a street repair being made at this location or nearby?
I do not have a record of a street being repaired in front of me.
Okay. All right. Very good. You have any further questions for the inspector, Mr. Garcia?
No, I'll let them talk, and then afterwards.
Well, they're done, so let us hear from you.
Okay, well, the whole street was paved, so there's no issues now. And before that hole was there, before the hole was created, it was no issue neither. So.
Well, Mr. Garcia, if you listen to the testimony and the statements made by the city solicitor, a complaint was filed with the city because someone had water in their basement. So there must have been a problem which generated the city to come out. Now, the question is, among the other questions is, when was the street repaved? When do you believe the street was repaved?
I can't give you an exact date. But it was after. And I believe that the basement that was getting filled with the property, I think the person is here as well, which is the address. What's the address? What's the address? 233 Allegheny, the owner of that property is here as well.
Is the owner of 233 West
Yeah, but West
East Allegheny present?
Yes, I'm here, sir.
Are you prepared to provide any testimony at this hearing today?
Whatever's needed, yes.
Well, can I ask you to raise your right hand and identify yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Evia Jimenez, reside at 233 East Allegheny Avenue, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19134.
Do you swear or affirm?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
If you don't mind, I think that it would be appropriate for us to go to the breakout room with respect to Ms. Jimenez's testimony.
Well, that's fine. Should I complete swearing her in and then we'll determine whether or not. I understand your issue is whether we should have her present testimony at all.
As she is an appellant.
She is not.
An appellant. That's my.
She is
concern.
not an appellant on the list. She is not listed as an appellant.
Yes.
She's here as a witness.
No, Chairman Pincus, she.
Yes.
I complied.
For 233 East Allegheny.
I
but
complied.
Yes, her matter
that
is
is-
marked moot complied. She
Yeah.
performed the requisite repairs.
Okay, that's case number 3.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, so Ms.
I stand
Jimenez, would
corrected.
you
My
raise your right
apologies.
hand? Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you give today will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, and your case has been marked moot complied, that whatever violation the city found at your property has been corrected. Do you agree?
Yes. Yes.
And Mr. Garcia, do you want Ms. Jimenez to speak with respect to the conditions as they relate to your property?
Yes.
Miss, it's a little unusual. I don't know in my time as a member of the board, we've done this, but we have someone here whose property is immediately adjacent to the property and is questioning or contesting the city's findings with respect to his property. Do you have any objection to hearing Ms. Jimenez describe what may have, if it's marked moot complied, she may be able to provide some information that would shed some light on Mr. Garcia's appeal.
I'll save my objection. I would just note my objection for any testimony that she has no personal knowledge of relating to her property, and her property has already been repaired. So I'll save my objections as the testimony comes forward, Chairman Pincus.
Thank you. Ms. Jimenez, is there anything you'd like to say regarding the repairs that were made to your property? Mind you, your case has been marked complied.
Yes.
So we-
There was a hole in the street, and then one torrential rain, my neighbor and I got water in the basement from that hole. Then the water department came out and did the dye test, and they said that my lateral was shifted. So that was on June. Then by June 29th, another inspector came out, they fixed my part. And all I know, there was a hole in the street and the water came into my basement and also my neighbor. Of them being their lateral, and it was so big. I mean, my shoes, my boots got wet. We had like a couple 4 or 5 inches or more of water in the basement. So
And
when
then-
I got cited with that, me and my husband decided we're not gonna play around with it. We're just gonna fix it and get it over with.
So you had a plumber come out and fix it?
No, the city fixed it. The
The
city
city re-
fixed it. My
Okay.
plumber came out, he was hired by the city and he came out and fixed it. And that was done like June, July. Cause I was sick. It was right after.
Okay, all right.
When was
so-
my race?
No,
July.
fine,
And
Miss Jimenez, that's fine. You testified that someone came out and repaired your lateral. That
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily mean that the lateral for the property owned by Mr. Garcia and his mother at 235 East Allegheny doesn't have a defect. Mr. Garcia, is there anything? Thank you for your testimony. Is there anything further you have, Mr. Garcia?
Yeah, they added that we had a cross, what's that called? A cross connection.
I noticed that on the report that Ms. Athanasiadis submitted. It said cross lateral. So I guess I don't know what that means. Maybe Inspector Chatwin can explain that.
Yes, so a cross connect, can you hear me?
We hear you.
Yes, so a cross connection means that he's connected to the wrong sewer. So if there's two sewers, there's a storm sewer for your water runoff and for the street runoff, and then there's a sanitary sewer for your waste. And if he's a combined, and they're saying he's cross-connected, not only is there a defect in his lateral, there's also an issue of him being connected to the wrong sewer.
I'm sorry, can I say something?
Yes.
They said that the cross connection was that I was connected to the neighbors. Which is
Well, that's not what of course, Mr. Catalan did not personally inspect the matter. He only is testifying, as far as I recall, to the records that are in the department.
Yes, no,
Correct, Chairman, and
now
I would,
for-
Wait a moment,
Robert,
Mr. Catalan, let your attorney speak.
Yes.
and I would object to any, as to they. It's unknown who Mr. Garcia purportedly spoke to, and any information received, I would object to any of that coming in.
Well, okay, thank you. Your objection is noted. The problem is that we have no evidence that there still is not a defect in the lateral for this property. If I'm not, if I understand the testimony so far. Mr. Garcia, do you have any further information to provide to us?
No. Give me 1 second.
Chairman, may I direct a question to Ms. Jimenez, who's a witness for Mr. Garcia?
Sure.
Ms. Jimenez, you indicated that you and your neighbor had water in your basement. What is the address of your neighbor?
235 East Allegheny Avenue.
And what was the name of your neighbor?
Well, my neighbor's name is Madeline.
Madeline Lugo?
Yes.
I think that's her last name, yes.
Okay. Chairman,
What address this is?
I'm
what is the-
233. The address is 235.
And
That's
mine,
just-
That's Mr. Garcia's address.
Yes.
yes.
But you named a different individual than either Rocio Santana or Mr. Garcia.
She lives in the property. On the
She lives in the
235.
property with you?
Yeah, and she's here with me now.
Okay, but that's fine. So the properties that took water were both 233 and 235. Subsequently, repairs were made, and you haven't had a water problem in your basement since then. Is that correct, Mr. Garcia?
Correct.
Neither have I.
Chairman Pincus, if I may, I would
Yes.
just point to the board that the call that came in regarding what precipitated the Philadelphia Water Department going out was the call from Ms. Lugo regarding the water in the basement at that same property, 235 East Allegheny. And there's been testimony and an admission made that that person still lives at the property.
That is correct.
Yes.
All right. Is there any further testimony that anyone wishes to present? Do you have an argument, Ms. Athanasiadis, to present?
I do, Chairman Pincus. I would just ask to mark and move into evidence, City 1, City 2, and the city responsibility, customer responsibility chart. And
That we will do.
And my argument is, there was credible testimony provided by Mr. Chaitlin based on the records. A call came in from the resident at the property at 235 East Allegheny for water in the basement. Mr. Chaitlin testified credibly that defective laterals can cause different conditions, which is, you know, one of the issues was the water going into the basement. Both Ms. Jimenez and Mr. Garcia talked about a hole being in the street. Mr. Chaitlin credibly testified that having a compromised lateral can create dirt shifts and different things underground causing that condition. And as we sit here today, there's been no evidence provided as to a repair being made. And just because necessarily that there still isn't water in the basement, the defect remains. And I also provided information that I believe the property did receive a help loan, and to date, no repairs have been made. So I just ask that the notice of defect be upheld, and there's a finding for city affirmed with an order for the property owners to have the lateral fixed.
Very good. And I'm sorry, I did not afford Mr. Garcia any closing statement, but I believed he had presented all of the testimony that he or his neighbor would present. Mr. Garcia, did you have any statement you wanted us to consider before we voted the case?
We, can Madeline Lugo, the person who lives at the 235, say something? Or can she?
I guess the answer is if the person lives there and she's the individual who called in the report, even though we've had a closing argument from the city, it's a little unusual, but I could swear her in and hear from her. Does anyone on the board object? Would you please raise your right hand and identify yourself?
My name is Madeline Lugo.
Would you, do you swear or affirm that the statements you give today will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, do you have any statement to make with respect to this appeal? And Ms. Athanasiadis, you'll have an opportunity to cross-examine and or revise your statement if you feel appropriate.
Thank you, Chairman.
At the beginning, hi, how are you? At the beginning, we had made me and the neighbor, we called in because there was a little hole created in the middle of the street. Got it. Then the hole kept getting bigger. Then the storm came in. Then the neighbor's husband and my husband decided to put a cone there. That made the water stop. Once that water stopped, then we stopped receiving water inside our basement. Now, it kept, we kept making reports to fix the pavement because the pavement was messed up. Then they kept insisting, oh, you need to call the water department. They kept redirecting us to the water department. I understand what the gentleman was trying to explain about the lateral defect. They also mentioned that we had a cross connection with the neighbor's plumbing. Now, I don't know what that has to do with anything, but when they was doing the whole checkup, they couldn't find anything. They couldn't even find the dye. So the fact that he said that they found the dye in one of the laterals was kind of like out of the picture. Now, I know that they put the dye inside the hole and then they went into my house and they noticed where the water was coming from. I explained to the guy and I listened, that hole is affecting the water. That's why the water came in. So that's why there's a picture there that we put the cone upside down and it stopped the water from coming in. We've been living in that house for quite a while and we have never had a problem with the water, with our plumbing. Now, when they left, they fixed the whole street and everything was fine. Like there was no problem. My question and concern was, how can that dye test be manipulated by the rain or by any other object that was around that area? Because I didn't see nobody go in the manhole like the first guy said, that they go in and they see it personally. We didn't see nobody go in personally. It was there was a whole bunch of rain. There was raining the whole week when they did the dye test. So I'm kind of like confused on how this dye test could be manipulated with the rain that whole week, like from that whole week.
All right. Thank you for your statements. Ms. Athanasiadis, do you have any questions?
Well, questions and an objection as to, it's unclear who they's referenced a few times.
Well, before we, Miss Longo, are you, when you said your husband, is Mr. Garcia your husband? That might clarify who you are and how you're related to the
Oh,
property.
that's my brother.
No, that's my sister. She lives at.
Oh, okay.
my
And,
property.
all right, fine. Okay. All right, Ms. Athanasiadis.
Yes, Miss Lugo, you contacted, I guess you made a call indicating there was water going into your basement, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And how long have you been living at the property?
Since 2000 and probably like 3 years now.
Okay.
Like 3 years.
Okay. And you've indicated that there is no longer water going into the basement?
Ever since we put that cone
And they paved the street.
and they paved the street, the whole Allegheny is brand new right now.
Okay. I have no further questions, Mr.
All right. I'd like to ask the board if we can take a recess and go into the breakout room to discuss this matter. All right, would you, we are going to take a 5-minute recess and we are now back on video. The case that we're hearing is the case for 235 East Allegheny Avenue. And we've heard testimony, we've heard statements, and I'll ask the board to vote the matter at this point. My vote is city affirmed.
City affirmed.
City affirmed.
City affirmed.
City affirmed.
The vote of the city, Mr. Garcia, is to affirm the findings, the violation notice of defect that was issued with respect to your property. You'll get a notification from the city, from our board, advising you of this decision and what actions you can take as a result. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, so hold on. So what does that mean?
So we're telling you that the decision, that the information we've received based on the testimony is that there is a defective lateral at your property, and there's nothing that's been provided today that says that this lateral is not defective and that you have to deal with it. And you'll get a letter saying that your appeal to this board has been denied. Okay? Thank you. The next matter.
That brings us down to case number 6. Hearing appeal number HA 2022-003117, Miguel F. Romano, 9434 Cruztown Road.
Alexandra Athanasiadis on behalf of the city, Chairman Pincus, and the witness for this matter would again be Mr. Robert Chaitlin.
Very good. Ms. Jimenez, your case was, I see you're still up on the screen. Your case has been closed. The city finds there's no violation. You're welcome. You're welcome to stay and listen to the rest of the hearings, but you may want to go and do something else.
Very interesting.
Okay, well then you're
Okay.
welcome to stay.
No,
right.
that's okay. I'm gonna go cook dinner. Y'all have a Merry Christmas, okay?
Very good. Thank you. Case number 6. That's Miguel Romano.
Yes.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Would you raise your right hand, please? And are you, will you swear or affirm that the testimony you give today will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I will.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Woodson and the board, Mr. Romano is appealing the notice of defect that was served on July 2020.
I have to, just a moment, please. Okay, let's proceed.
Mr. Romano is appealing the notice of defect that was issued on July 20th, 2022 for the property located at 9434 Cruztown Road. The deed lists Miguel Romano and Inga Rechtman as owners of the property. On July 20, 2022, the Philadelphia Water Department went to the location for a depression investigation. While on site, a cave-in was found and a dye test was performed. Dye appeared in the storm lateral through a defective lateral at 9434 Cruztown Road. A notice of plumbing defect was issued that day. And as of the most recent data reinspection, which was August 30th, 2022, no repairs had been made. And Mr. Robert Chaitlin, the city would be calling as its witness in that matter. Chairman, I can proceed if you don't need to swear him in since you've sworn him in for the other matter, or?
Yes, I had to unmute myself. I switched to a different device. Okay.
And
Mr. Chaitlin, you've already been sworn in, so you can, you don't need to be sworn in again, and you can proceed.
Can I ask if he's here? It's a court reporter.
yes, I don't see him.
He was here.
Yes,
You need to call him?
yes, please, the board's indulgence while I reach out to Mr. Chaitlin. Chairman, I'm unable to get Mr. Chaitlin. If the board wishes, they can continue on to the other matters and I'll keep reaching out. I don't want to hold the board up. I know it's late in the day and I can keep trying him.
Please do that. Mr. Romano, can you bear with us for a little while until we try to locate the inspector? Just let me confirm for the record, are you an owner of the property at 9434 Cruztown Road?
Yes.
Very good. All right, please bear with us. And we'll proceed to
Case number 9,
case number 9.
hearing appeal number HA 2021-003-390. Chang Ho Kim, Sheila Kim, 6700 Sprague Street.
Hi, this is Christopher Johnson for the city of Philadelphia.
Is a Chang Ho King or Kim or Sheila Kim, are you present?
They were here, as was their attorney.
Mr. Silver is on the line.
Mr. Silver, I'm looking on my
Attorney.
screen.
I'm asking him to unmute now.
Daniel Silver, I'm still here, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Silver, are you representing the owners of the property at 6700 Sprague Street?
Yes, Your Honor, I filed the appeal.
Very good. All right. Let us proceed, Mr. Johnson.
Okay, board members, this case relates to an appeal of the denial of a renewal of a tobacco retailer permit at 6700 Sprague Street. City is going to be calling one witness in the matter. It's Jody Wilkins.
Very good. Ms. Wilkins, are you with us still? You're muted and I don't see your picture. Mr. Johnson, I don't see her picture at the moment. I see her on my screen.
Ms. Wilkins? Jody?
Do you need to call her and see if she's,
Hold on.
we'll wait for a minute. You can find her. Mr. Silver, when you proceed, are you going to be able to make your video available?
I don't know that I will be. I'm on a phone, Your Honor.
And do you have witnesses that you're going to present today?
Well, Mr. Kim, and he was there, and he was here at, I guess, 1:15. He would be a witness, but it's only basically certain documents that I would want to present, Your Honor. And I don't think there's really any dispute as to the facts of the case.
Well, I guess we can proceed. You said you're Mr. Silver. I'm not going to dispute, although Miss Penn, I believe you're speaking, but you're muted.
Yes, I'm mumbling to myself, Mr. Pincus. I'm getting ready to send you a message in the chat. However, I'll make my position clear to Mr. Silver that he cannot testify on behalf of his client, which is what he is proposing to do. I mean, if he's going to make argument after the submission of documents and evidence presented by his client, who appears to have left the room, that's something different. But I don't believe it's appropriate for him to testify on behalf of his client.
I believe he said that the documents speak for themselves, and that he didn't indicate he was going to testify. Is that right, Mr. Silver?
Yeah,
We wouldn't accept your testimony in this matter, and if testimony is required to be presented and your client's not here, then we certainly can't consider the matter at this point. You may want to try to call them and see where they are, and hopefully they have a video connection, although you don't.
well, then I would ask that the matter be delayed, Your Honor. I've been waiting since 1:15 on the phone here to go with the case.
Well, Mr. Silver, I assume you're an experienced attorney and that matters are listed at a particular time and that we can't control the pace of when these matters will be heard. So the fact that you've been waiting is not unusual, at least in my experience of being involved in hearings over the last 30 or 40 years with the city. So if you're asking for a continuance, that's
on TV. It might be on TV. Yeah, I'm on TV.
Well, yeah, if my client is not here, Your Honor, and was here, then I would ask for a continuance.
does the city object, Mr. Johnson? I assume the license wasn't renewed, so there's no harm in continuing the matter.
In a sense, the city would only like to make the record here that we're present and prepared to proceed. I don't believe it will take a lot of time to put the city's evidence on. And so I mean, I would like to get it done today.
Well, I appreciate that, but if Mr. Silver is saying he needs his client to be here as a witness, and they shouldn't have left, but I'm not going to prejudice them and the opportunity to present an argument. So I'm going to continue this matter. The case number is case number HA 2021-003-390. We'll continue the case, and perhaps the next time you come on, Mr. Silver, you'll make arrangements so that you could be available for an extended period of time in the afternoon, and also have available a screen to share with us, a video.
I would love to do that, Your Honor.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you for your courtesy.
Have a good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Is that the end of the cases for the Health Department, Mr. Johnson?
I believe that they've all been disposed of.
Yes.
Only case I have open is case number 6.
Case number
That's
6,
a
we're waiting
water
on.
case.
That's a water case. We're trying to find the inspector. Case number 7,
With city affirmed.
City affirmed.
The only cases left is case 6, and then the audits and investigations case is being handled by Mr. Cohen.
Correct.
That were for the continuance. We've reached out to the opposing counsel and we have yet to receive any correspondence.
All right, so let's go back to the one case that we were looking for, Inspector Chatlin. Thank you, Ms. Wilkins.
Thank you.
Who was counsel on this for the city?
Alex.
That was Ms. Athanasiadis, is that correct? And she was trying to locate Mr. Chatlin.
Yep.
Ms. Athanasiadis, any luck? I see Mr. Romano. Should we wait a moment and let's go back to the cases while we're waiting? As long as you have a patience, Mr. Romano, we'll hope that Ms. Athanasiadis rejoins us momentarily. Okay. Mr. Johnson, Mr. Cohen, do you have any further cases? Oh, you do indeed. Yes. The last series of cases. I guess
I do have, let's say, 5 minutes of presentation on the continuance request, specifically because the appellant has called into question whether or not this is a true emergency. And I would like to present an offer of proof that this is, in fact, a true emergency.
I'd like to get the one water case done and move along, but there you are. There's Ms. Athanasiadis. Would you unmute yourself and let us know the status of your inspector?
Yes, Chairman Woodson. I was able to make Chairman Pincus, I apologize.
That's okay.
I was able to make contact with the inspector. He is no longer available. He stayed past his clock out time so we could complete the other matter, and so he advised he's no longer available. So I apologize for the inconvenience. I would respectfully request that the matter be continued. And, you know, I defer to the board for whatever the decision is.
Well, we'd like to hear from the city and get their position and what their expert has identified as the problem. I feel badly for Mr. Romano, who's
I feel like the inspector has already, given his view on the other cases. Like, all that she's pretty much going to present is what is a lateral leak, and all that type of stuff. Which
Mr. Romano, you haven't been sworn in, and the only question is whether we postpone hearing your case. We understand, and you understand, you've been observing them. So the only issue is we would like to, because of the city's difficulty with their inspector, is relist this for another day. Maybe there's an opportunity in the meantime for you to either obtain, if you haven't presented any information on your part saying you're obviously appealing because you're questioning the findings of the city. And if you haven't presented any evidence of a plumber or some expert to challenge the city's findings, you now will have an additional time to do so.
Okay, but I have presented photos, and my case isn't a regular case, like, where a resident has given a notice of this defect. This is something that the street department has done, and I have photos of this issue, and I don't find.
All right, I understand you. Unfortunately, I think what we'll do is we'll ask the city the next time these water cases are listed to make a note and try to have your case listed as the first case we hear. I apologize, and I understand your frustration. But we're going to continue the case, and we'll ask that it be listed as the first water department case that we hear.
But
That's the ruling we're making. All right, Mr. Romano, I'm so sorry.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman Pincus, and I would just ask if any evidence that Mr. Romano presented to board administration, if that could be forwarded to me. So we have an opportunity to review and keep the cases moving and flowing at the next hearing smoothly.
All right, Mr. Wade, do you have a record of receiving information from Mr. Romano on this property?
I believe so. I believe they were forwarded as well. But I'll look into it.
All right, so your record will now reflect that Ms. Athanasiadis is the attorney of record for the city. Make sure that whatever you have is forwarded to her.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate the board's patience and indulgence.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to case number 14, cases 14 through 19. Is that correct, Mr. Wade?
Yes. Would you like them read
Jeffrey
into the
Cohen.
record?
Well, let's read them onto the record.
Okay. Case number 14, hearing appeal number HA 2022-004113, RLC Contractors Incorporated, 1921 Green Street. Case number 15, hearing appeal number HA 2022-004114, RLC Contractors Incorporated, 1701 through 7 South 4th Street. Case number 16, hearing appeal number 2022-09, case number 16, hearing appeal number HA 2022-004113, RLC Contractors Incorporated, 1818 East Moyaminsing Avenue. Case number 17, hearing appeal number HA 2022-004116, RLC Contractors, 1726 Federal Street. Case number 18, hearing appeal number HA 2022-004642, RLC Contractors, Demolition Contractors License. Case number 19, there's a correction on the list. Hearing appeal number 2022-000464, RLC Contractors, Demolition Contractors License.
Mr. Wade, I have a question. Going back to case number 16, you read it as case number HA 2022-004116. I'm trying to figure, we have 15, so is there a correction on
It
that
is
one as well?
115. Case number
It's
16 is
115.
115. Case 17 is 116.
Thank you.
Jeffrey
right,
Cohen
so
for the city
we-
of Philadelphia.
Mr. Cohen, we had a discussion at the beginning of the hearings because there is a request for a continuance that was submitted by our Mr. McInnes, an attorney for the appellant. We asked the city to try to reach out to contact Mr. McInnes, I guess is the pronunciation, and/or the principal. Mr. Wade said that he did indeed leave messages. Have we heard from either the appellant or his attorney? Mr. Cohen or Mr. Wade, have you heard from them?
I have heard nothing, but I would assume Mr. Wade left his phone number with the messages, not my phone number.
Mr. Wade, are you there?
Just give me 1 second to confirm.
You're muted.
Mr. Chair, I'll let Mr. Wade go first.
If I can do some housekeeping in the meantime. Appeals number 15, 16, and 17 are all moot. as those are from notices that have been closed and replaced with other notices. Most notably, you can see that appeal number 17 has been replaced by appeal number 18. The original September 13th notice of intent to suspend contractor's license has been replaced by the October 19th revised notice of intent to suspend contractor's license. So numbers 15, 16, and 17 can be closed as moot or dismissed as moot.
Those cases are moot, but in fact, the other three cases are still relevant, correct?
That's true.
Cases number 14, 18, and 19.
Although 19 is a duplicative of 18, it's just separate grounds from the same October 19th revised notice.
Okay.
That's it. We can consolidate them. That's fine.
Mr. Wade, have we heard from any response to your call?
No response as of yet.
Mr. Chair, I'll be clear, Mr. Cohen, did you say 19 should be marked as mute also?
Oh, no, 19 is a duplicate of 18. They're both separate grounds of appeal from the same revised notice. So you can essentially treat them as one.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I had a question too. Previously, when we discussed these particular cases, we were going to inquire to Mr. Fernandez to see if he has heard anything from the appellant's attorney.
Mr. Fernandez is on the screen. I guess before we hear from him, we'd like, if that's okay with Mr. Cohen, for Mr. Fernandez to be identified and be sworn in.
I'm going to indicate yes, it is okay.
All right, Mr. Fernandez, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I swear.
Would you please identify yourself, because in order to respond to the question that was asked by a board member 10.
Yes, my name is Will Fernandez. I'm the Director of Audits and Investigations with the Department of Licenses and Inspections. To answer board member Tennant's question, the last communication I had with either the appellant or their counsel was when we were both copied on Mr. Cohen's email strenuously objecting to the continuance request.
You did have a conversation?
No, that was the last time I heard anything from them. I apologize if I was unclear. I have not heard from them since that round of emails, I believe yesterday or maybe the day before yesterday.
I believe it was 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Have you ever spoke to the attorney, Mr. Fernandez? Excuse me, Mr. Cohen.
Not beyond a few emails that we were both copied on. I don't think we ever even directly emailed each other about anything.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. Appreciate it.
Of course.
All right, so at this point, the matter, I guess I'll ask Mr. Cohen to give us a little synopsis on why he believes the board should hear this. Again, I'm a little concerned that where there is a matter involving counsel that, and they've asked for a continuance, that we deny that continuance request and then hear the city, or actually, we wouldn't even hear the cases. We'd be placed in a position to affirm the city because of a lack of appearance.
I think, Chairman Pincus, your concern is well-founded. Essentially, what the concern is this a matter that required Mr. McInnes to show up today? He said that there was a conflict. Admittedly, he said this 2 days ago over email directly to the board's admin and not to members of the board or to opposing counsel. But he said there was a conflict and he wanted to continue for over a month. And the city objected because this is an emergency, and it is an emergency because of the methods and unsafe methods that this particular contractor is using that cannot be allowed to continue. That is an immediate problem. And if Mr. McInnes were reading the immediacy and the emergency into that, he should have been here today, or should have sent another attorney here today in his stead to at least argue for a continuance, or at least argue against the emergent nature of these circumstances. And actually with that, I would like to show a video on my screen that has been labeled Exhibit D8 in the city's exhibits packet that was given out on Monday.
Unless anybody from the board objects, if you want to show this as in support of your argument that there's enough, that this matter should have been considered today.
This is in support of the emergent circumstances, the reason why this continuance should be denied.
Okay.
Can everyone see the video that is currently, the still of the video that is currently on my screen?
I see it.
This is the site at 1818 to 1820 East Moyamensing, and I'll provide this as an offer of proof and then ask Director Will Fernandez to corroborate it later. But you see these metal I-beams in the middle of the video that are connected to this brick wall at the right-hand side of the video frame. Those I-beams, per an engineer's report, need to be deconstructed very specifically and in a specific order. RLC Contractors, which is currently conducting the demolition that you see on this video still, they were instructed to take apart the I-beam connections first, disconnect them from the other beams from the wall, and then gently lower them to the ground. And this is what they actually did. And you can see a little bit in the video that machine that has its grip around the I-beam is attempting to force it from the wall. And you can see a person in a hard hat and a blue shirt is making a hand motion to the operator of the machine, and the machine is yanking the I-beam out of the wall with pieces of metal falling down haphazardly onto the ground. It's now twisting the I-beam, and the column that the I-beam was connected to just fell, and you can see it's now lowering the I-beam after various pieces of metal have already fallen down on the work site. That is a textbook example of an unsafe demolition. Not only is it unsafe, it is not per the specific engineer's directions that were given to RLC Contractors. RLC hired this professional engineer, and RLC's principal, Robert Miner, was on site this day. This video was taken at 2:37 p.m. on August 18th of 2022. An L&I inspector was on site 20 minutes prior. And at that time, they were behaving themselves because they were in the presence of an inspector. Not 20 minutes later, they went and did a very unsafe yanking of a steel I-beam member out of a brick wall that, well, frankly, in a manner that they should not have, that contradicted their own engineer's report, and they did so shortly after an inspector was on site. That is the type of behavior that presents an emergency circumstance that means that this board should deny the continuance. I actually have another.
I don't know that we need to see further further video or pictures of the circumstances, and it's been alleged in the documents submitted by the city describing each of these instances why there is a basis to suspend or or terminate the license. I don't know, does the board, I guess, I think it might be appropriate for the board to have a discussion and then come back.
Well, if I can add one more piece of argument. The lessons from the 2013 Salvation Army collapse were very dearly learned at the cost of many people's lives. And one of the main lessons from that was hand demolitions are important to protect public safety. It was the lack of a hand demolition, the use of a machine, that caused the collapse in 2013 that killed 6 people. This contractor has done exactly that. And as Director Fernandez found at the 1921 Green Street site that is also part of the city's case, that contractor, RLC, did a machine demolition that caused structural damage to a party wall that caused an 11-unit apartment building to be evacuated. And to this day, there are still make-safe efforts going to shore up the party wall at 1919 Green Street. Thankfully, there was no loss of life or injuries that day. But that's why we need to act very quickly, and that's why the board should deny this continuance.
Well, all right.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Mr. Cullen. Mr. Cullen, can L&I put a stop work order on the site, and then it becomes then if they go to work, you can call the police?
Well, hypothetically, we can put a stop work order on a specific site, but we're talking about a company that is taking new, or potentially could take new contracts and do new demolitions. That's why we're seeking to suspend their license. That's the stop work order that we need. We need to stop on their license so that they can't continue to do this type of work.
Well, the inspector witnessed them not following the specifications of taking it down. He should have put a stop work order on it.
Well, actually, that was the problem, is the inspector had left. They were behaving themselves while the inspector was there. And as soon as the inspector left, not 20 minutes later, they were using a machine to yank out an I-beam at 1818 East Moyamensing.
But
So
I
that's
guess
part of the problem.
Mr. Pettit is asking, somehow you ended up with video of the blatant, what appears to be a blatant violation. And therefore you arguably would have had authority to go back after that video was made and put a stop work order on the property.
Director Fernandez can speak to that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Cohen. If I may address the question, we recovered that video from a neighbor in the course of our investigation. It was recently, I mean, in the last several months, obtained after the demolition had been finalized at that location. That video showing the blatant violations and risk to public safety from the contractor in question, combined with the other documentary evidence that we were able to obtain, including a video of a similarly violative and unsafe demolition on 4th Street, and photographs that were just happened to be caught by Pictometry, which is a service similar to Google Maps. Those 3 incidents combined showed us that this is a pattern of behavior from the contractor, and that to protect public safety, we had to quickly take action to suspend their license and make all reasonable efforts to expedite the hearing so that we could take away their ability to continue violating the code going forward.
And Director Fernandez, you took that video at 1701 South 4th Street yourself, correct?
I did. I was actually out of the office with COVID. My toddler daughter also had COVID, so I was taking her on a walk in my neighborhood, the same walk I take, or I did take until I moved, pretty much every single day to the park near our house. And I happened to see a demolition occurring. I saw a large machine balanced on a pile of rubble, and I saw it removing metal beams from the attached warehouse structure. Even though I've been in this job for a few years now, I don't have any real significant technical construction or demolition training. And I consider myself more of a layperson that relies on expert witnesses and experts. But even to me, I knew right away that it wasn't right. So I stopped and took a video. And it wasn't until after I took the video and I looked up the permit on Atlas, because I wasn't working, I was just on my personal cell phone, did I see that it was RLC Contractors, who we already had an active investigation into because of their behavior at 1919 Green Street, which rendered the neighboring occupied apartment building imminently dangerous and forced the immediate evacuation of that property.
And did you later run that video from South 4th Street by an expert?
I certainly did, and it didn't even really require expert analysis, but I did. Once I looked closer at the terms of the permit, I saw that the permit called for hand demolition. And just like we saw at Moyamensing, just like we established at Green Street, they were using heavy machinery, which of course saves costs because you don't have to pay the large amount of labor costs associated with hand demolition, but does put neighboring buildings at a higher risk than hand demolition. So once I reviewed the permit, I knew it was a clear violation. I showed it to some of the people who work in AIU who do have that background, and they all concluded that it was a illegal and unsafe demolition. I reported that video right away, of course, to the unit that has jurisdiction over demolition permits, and they were out at the site soon after and posted a stop work order until they had assurances that the rest of the demolition would happen by hand.
And just for the record, Exhibit C1 is that demolition permit requiring hand demolition. Exhibit C4 is Director Fernandez's video. And Director Fernandez, was the city's earlier offer of proof accurate to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, Mr. Cohen, everything you've put forth before the board today has been accurate to the best of my knowledge.
Thank you.
Of course.
Does the
are
board
we
have
in
any
a
other
place-
questions?
Yes, Mr. Cohen, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I'm asking if the board has any other questions.
Have none.
So we have before us an email request for a continuance, which I guess we should rule upon first. And if we grant the request for the continuance, then we have to reschedule the matter. If we deny it, then we would ask the case to be called and decide what action to take depending on the response once the case is called. Cases are called. So I guess normally it isn't the board decision, but because of the magnitude of this matter, and it sounds like it's a matter of some magnitude, I'd ask each of the board members to give me their vote on each of these two issues. One is continuance, and then the question of hearing the cases. I'll affirm the position of the city.
Mr.
that
Chair,
the continuance-
just so I'm clear, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
We grouping all three together, or are you going to take them one at a time?
Well, I think when we make, I guess if for the continuance, I would group all three together. And then if we have to make a decision on each appeal, we can act upon each appeal. But the request is for continuance with respect to all of the matters pending involving RLC Contractors, Inc. And so let's vote on the continuance request. The city has strenuously opposed that request that was submitted after the hearing was scheduled, and after the hearing was scheduled, and after the request for an emergency hearing was made. I'll grant the city's request. I'll grant the city's request to deny the continuance.
Thank you.
I concur with the chairman.
Deny the continuance request by the appellant.
Yes, I concur with the chairman that the request should be denied.
I concur with the chairman. The request should be denied.
Request for continuance denied. Let's call the cases in order and vote on each case. I guess first question is, as we call the case, then we'll ask the city for what action it requests that we take. Mr. Wade.
Well, actually, I can offer to move the city's exhibits packet, which was provided on Monday, into evidence. And that also would mean the city's evidence and videos would be part of the record. And then the city could stand on that record.
I have no objection to accepting them. That's fine. We'll accept the city's exhibit packages for all of the pending appeals.
Mr. Cohen,
Thank you.
I'm just confirming, I'm calling 14, 18, and 19, correct?
Yes, 14, 18, and 19 are active. The city proposes that 15, 16, and 17 are all moot as those notices have been closed.
Okay. Case number 14, hearing appeal number 2022-004113, RLC Contractors, 1921 Green Street.
Mr. Cohen,
Oh, sorry, for number 14, the city would respectfully request that this be city affirmed.
it is 5:03 PM. My vote is city affirmed, lack of appearance by the appellant.
City affirmed, lack of appearance.
City affirm lack of appearance.
The affirm non-appearance.
City affirm non-appearance and double checking on the time. Was that 5:04?
5:03 is what I called it as.
Okay.
Case number 18, hearing appeal number HA 2022-004642, RLC Contractors Incorporated, Demolition Contractors License. Noble
I
Fund.
actually would point out for the record, of the 4 notices of violation that are listed in the revised notice of intent to suspend, 3 of those notices have not been appealed, so they can be marked deemed admitted. Those 3 notices are the ones pertaining to 1701 South 4th Street, 1818 East Moyamensing, and 1726 Federal. Case number 14, which was just marked city affirmed for failure to appear, that was the one notice that was properly appealed and was before this board. Otherwise, the board may consider the revised notice on the merits of case number 19 or cases number 18 and 19.
So I guess, while I'm trying to follow the flow, you've listed each of these street addresses in support of the denial or removal of the demolition contractor's license. And you're saying that some of them were not properly appealed, but at this point, there's no one here to argue whether or not the license should be suspended. And
That's correct.
We're suspending the license for the contractor. It's not necessarily that we're suspending the licenses with respect to these individual properties. Those properties
That's
and
correct.
addresses are to support your contention that the license should be suspended.
Really, it's a technical difference between marking case 18 and 19 as city affirmed for lack of appearance or city affirmed on the merits, because at this stage, it can be affirmed on the merits because there are 3 underlying notices of violation that are deemed admitted. And on the facts that are admitted, forgetting 1921 Green Street for the moment, under the facts that are admitted, the board may make a determination of city affirmed on the merits.
City affirmed on the merits. I guess I just need to clarify on the merits of the violations with respect to the properties, or on the merits of the suspension of the license?
On the merits of the suspension of the license, which itself stands on 3 notices of violation that are uncontested.
Okay, that's fine. All right, then your request is for the appeal number 18 to which is the suspension of the demolition contractor's license to be sustained.
For the appeal
Affirmed,
to be
city affirmed.
City affirmed, but not for failure to appear. City affirmed on the merits of the notice.
Makes sense.
Okay, so you're looking for me to state that the city is affirmed based on one, lack of a proper appeal having been filed, and also that there is not a party here to appear in behalf of them.
Well, it's even if the party was here, it's too late to file appeals untimely and that are not before this board for those 3 notices that upon which the revised notice of intent to suspend stands. So essentially, even if they showed up, they would still lose on the merits because they haven't appealed these underlying notices.
You're basically arguing, Mr. Cohen, if I understand you correctly, that failure to appeal the notices acts as an admission of the violations cited in those notices.
And that's correct.
But we can just basically vote city affirmed.
I know it's a technical difference between city affirmed and city affirmed for non-appearance, but I'm assuming that Mr. McInnes will at least be tempted to file a further appeal to the Court of Common Pleas. And this provides a legal background for the city affirmed finding, as opposed to a city affirmed for non-appearance, which might eventually get sent back to the board anyway, and we'll end up spending a lot more time on something we really don't need to.
I guess my question is, do we need to put on the record that the city's decision to affirm is for a failure to appeal the underlying violations?
I would say no, because the city affirmed is on the merits of the revised notice. It doesn't really get into the failure to appeal these underlying NOVs for Moyamensing and Federal Street. But the revised notice incorporates those facts, and those facts are deemed admitted. And because those facts are deemed admitted, the merits of the notice are apparent.
Mr. McSherry, do you have a comment, or we can just act and make a decision city affirmed?
I would say the board can act and just make that decision.
Okay.
Based on the merits.
Based on the merits. Okay,
Right.
so it's 5:09 p.m. in case number 18, HA 2022-004642. My vote is city affirmed on the merits.
City affirmed on the merits.
City affirmed based upon the merits.
City affirmed based on the merits.
City affirmed based on the merits.
Thank you.
Case number 19, hearing appeal number HA 2022-000646, RLC Contractors Incorporated, demolition contractor's license.
My understanding that is the case number was not listed correctly.
I apologize. Case number HA 2022-000464.
Sorry, the appeal number 19 is actually from the same revised notice. The city would ask that the same vote be taken to affirm on the merits.
It is 5:10 PM. My vote is city affirmed on the merits.
City affirmed based on the merits.
City affirmed based on the merits.
City affirmed based on merits.
City affirmed based on the merits.
Very good.
Chair, is the decision for case 14 still lack of appearance, or is that based on the merits as well? Was
I
that based-
believe that's a lack of appearance. I don't
Oh,
want to
it's lack
speak
of
for the board, but that was what
Okay.
I wrote down.
Thank you.
And just to wrap up 15, 16, and 17, those I believe are moot. Will there be a vote or another announcement on those appeals?
If they're marked as moot, I don't believe that you're calling for any action by the board.
Well, the appeals haven't been marked. It's the underlying notices that have been closed. So I think there does need to be some kind of board action to at least declare them moot.
We customarily, when the city notifies us of a moot appeal, as has happened, it's not a case, I guess, you're not saying they're complied, you're saying they're moot because they've been merged into subsequent notices.
Yes, in fact, the appeal number 17 was the previous notice of intent to suspend the contractor's license. That was closed and reissued and then subsequently reappealed as number 18. So that's why 17 is moot, because it was closed out and then we've dealt with it later in appeal 18 and appeal 19.
I don't know that an action is called for by the board other than to acknowledge that these cases have been, as you say, closed out and addressed in these other matters.
I think
I'm not
that
sure
probably
that-
should be sufficient, is just an announcement on the record that they've been closed and are moot.
Well, I will confirm that you have stated to us that cases number 15, HA 2022-004114, case number 16, HA 2022-004115, and case number 17, HA 2022-004116, all involving RLC contractors, have been closed out. They are the issues of other notices, and under the circumstances are moot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further business from you or any of the other city attorneys?
I believe that concludes the tail end of this list, unless there are any other matters, any other attorneys can pop back in and discuss. That concludes my matters.
Very good. Before you and Mr. Fernandez depart, I'd like to go off the record